My name is Javier Ruiz, and I am a sergeant at the Central Police Station in this forgotten town on the outskirts of the city, a dusty corner where the streets are tangled like varicose veins and the midday sun burns the skin like a red-hot iron. I've been on the force for 20 years, patrolling those same streets that reek of stale beer spilled on the sidewalks, of the broken dreams of retired miners who sit on the benches in the main square, staring into space as if waiting for the world to give them back something they never had. My life is simple, or at least it was until a few months ago. The night shift that leaves my eyes gritty and my soul in tatters, the black coffee that burns my stomach like acid, and my daughter Sophia. She is all I have left from a marriage that fell apart like wet paper in the first serious storm. When her mother, Anna, decided that the adrenaline rush of my badge, those siren beeps at midnight, the smell of blood at crime scenes, wasn't worth the constant fear that I wouldn't come home. "I don't want to raise Sophia alone, Javier," she said that night, her suitcases already packed in the hallway, the echo of the door closing like a gunshot in my chest. She'd left for the capital, for an office job and a boyfriend who sold insurance, and I was left with joint custody, which became sole custody when she forgot to pick her up on weekends. Sophia is 12 now, but in my mind, she's still that 3-pound bundle who was born on a stormy July night when lightning lit up the delivery room like flashes from a horror movie. I remember her wrapped in a pink blanket, her big eyes, inherited from my mother. Those eyes that saw the world with infinite curiosity, opening for the first time, fixed on me as if she already knew that I would be her shield against everything. "Look at her, Javier. She's perfect," whispered Anna, exhausted but radiant, handing her to me with trembling hands. I held her as if she were made of glass, her warmth against my chest, calming the panic that had gripped me during the birth. From that moment on, I have protected her, like a wolf protects its cub. She is the only pure thing in this shitty world, where men like me see the worst of humanity on a daily basis. Armed robberies in seedy bars, drunken fights that end in stabbings, and occasionally, something even worse, like the case of that 10-year-old girl we found in a vacant lot last year, with her clothes torn and her eyes empty. No, Sophia is my light, her smile illuminating the gray mornings when I drop her off at the gate of San Martin School, that rusty iron gate that creaks like a lament every time it closes. She waves from the playground, backpack on her shoulder, with that light step that makes her look like a frightened but brave little bird, and I leave with my heart a little lighter, knowing that I will return for her at 3 o'clock. But all that changed one Tuesday in October, one of those days when the east wind brings the smell of imminent rain and something rotten that you can't identify. Perhaps the polluted river that winds its way through the edge of town, or perhaps just the stench of accumulated despair. It was October 3rd, to be precise, although the dates are now blurred in my mind like ink underwater. Sophia had been quiet at breakfast, sitting at the kitchen table with her bowl of cereal in front of her, stirring the flakes with her spoon as if they were an unsolvable puzzle. This was not like her. She always chattered non-stop about school, about how the art teacher had made them draw dragons. "One with wings of fire, Dad. Do you want to see mine later?" Or about her best friend Lucia's secret crush on the new boy in 5th grade. That day, nothing. Just silence, and that evasive look that made me frown as I poured coffee into my thermos. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Did you have a nightmare last night?" I asked, sitting down in front of her and ruffling her hair with that feigned tenderness I used so as not to alarm her. Her brown hair, inherited from Anna, was soft as silk, and always smelled of strawberry shampoo, the kind we bought at the supermarket on the highway. She looked up, those big eyes now clouded by something that wasn't sleep. "Dad, can I stay home a little longer today? I don't know. My tummy hurts." Her voice was thin, like a thread of glass about to break, and it tore my heart in two. I leaned over the table and took her cold hand. "Sophie, school is school. You know that. Tomorrow is Friday, and on Saturday we'll go to the movies, remember? That movie with princesses and swords that you love so much." I tried to smile, but it came out crooked. She nodded, lowering her head, and we finished breakfast in a silence that weighed like lead. I drove her in the old Ford, that clunker that coughs like a chain smoker every time it starts, to the gate of San Martin. I watched her go in, backpack slung over her shoulder, turning around one last time to wave with less enthusiasm than usual. I didn't think much of it. Kids have their off days, I told myself, as I merged into the morning traffic, the radio crackling with the daily report. A minor robbery at the hardware store, nothing I couldn't handle. The night shift was routine but exhausting. A raid on a house suspected of drug trafficking, where my hands were left smelling of gunpowder and someone else's sweat, and a couple of drunks we had to separate in a seedy bar near the bridge. I got home after 2 a.m, my body heavy as if I were wearing a lead uniform. The house was silent, except for the ticking of the clock in the living room and the hum of the refrigerator. I climbed the creaky stairs, thinking of a quick shower and 8 hours of stolen sleep. But as I passed Sophia's half-open door, I saw her, curled up in bed with her knees against her chest, the phone in her hand like a cursed talisman. The screen glowed like an evil eye in the darkness, illuminating her pale face, streaked with dried tears. "Sophie, what's wrong, sweetheart?" I whispered, entering slowly and sitting on the edge of the mattress. The mattress sank under my weight, and she sat up suddenly, like a spring, her eyes red and swollen like those of a frightened rabbit. Without saying a word, she handed me her phone, her hands trembling. "Look at it, Dad. You look at it." Her voice was thin and broken, and at that moment, I knew it wasn't a fight with a friend or a failing grade in math. This was something dark, something that tangled in my gut like barbed wire. I took the phone, the cold screen against my calloused palm, and opened the chat app she used to talk to her classmates, the one I had installed myself, with parental controls that now embarrassed me for not having checked before. They were messages, dozens of them, piled up in a conversation that went back 3 weeks, the sender anonymous under a fake profile. Gato Negro lover, with a photo of a black cat that seemed to look at you with contempt, its yellow eyes piercing the screen like daggers. The first one was innocent almost. "Hi, Sophie. I'm from school, 6th grade. I liked your dance on TikTok. You're cute." She had replied with a heart emoji, thinking it was a boy her age, maybe Mateo or one of the others. But then it escalated, like a slippery slope into the abyss. I swiped my finger, my heart beginning to beat like a war drum in my chest. Each pulse a hammer blow against my ribs. "You're so pretty when you leave school, Sophie. I love watching you walk alone by the fence. Why don't you wait for me one day?" Another, the next day. "Today I saw you in that blue skirt, the one that comes down to your knees. It looks perfect on you. Do you wear it for me? I want to touch it." My breath caught in my throat, a lump of bile rising. "Don't tell anyone, Sophie, or I'll have to do something bad, something you won't like." And then, my God, the videos. The first one seemed harmless, or so I thought in my initial stupidity. A short, 15-second clip of the school gate, filmed from across the street with a shaky zoom on her figure, walking out, her backpack swinging, the wind ruffling her hair. But the audio, a hoarse, distorted whisper. "There you are, my little princess. Coming home without knowing I'm watching you." The second video. The second one froze the blood in my veins, as if someone had poured ice directly into my heart. It was a man, or what was left of one, a silhouette distorted by the darkness. In a dimly lit room, perhaps a basement, with bare concrete walls and a bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling like a dying light bulb. He was gasping like a wounded animal, the guttural sound amplified by the cheap microphone on the phone. The camera was shaking, focusing on his hand. Thick fingers, bitten nails, moving furiously over his erect member, covered with veins swollen like rotten roots emerging from damp earth. In the background, stuck to the wall with yellowed dirty tape, was a photo of Sophia. the one I had taken myself on her 11th birthday 3 months earlier. Smiling in a yellow flower dress, innocent as a lamb in a meadow, her eyes shining under the cake's sun. The guy moaned her name, Sophie, my Sophie, so sweet, so mine, as he ejaculated on the image, thick white semen splattering her smiling face in the photo, dripping slowly like viscous lava. The video was only 30 seconds long, but each second was an eternity of nausea, my stomach churning as if I had swallowed ground glass. I slammed the phone shut, the case hitting the nightstand with a sharp noise that echoed in the silent room. Sophia sobbed against my chest, her small body convulsing with each hiccup. Dad, I don't know who he is. He wrote to me weeks ago. At first he was nice, telling me he was a boy from school who liked my dragon drawing that I posted on Instagram. He sent me emojis and asked me about my classes. But then he started following me. He sees me at school, Dad. He waits for me when I leave, I swear. Once, last Thursday, I felt someone watching me from the gray car on the corner, and when I turned around, I saw a cigarette smoke coming out of the window. Her words came out broken, hot against my shirt, and I hugged her tight, rocking her like when she was a baby and had colic, the strawberry scent of her hair mixing with the metallic smell of my sweat. Shh, my love, shh, Daddy's here. No one's gonna touch you. No one, I whispered, but in my head the plan was already brewing, a whirlwind of contained rage and cold calculation. As a cop, you know that blind rage leads straight to jail. I've seen colleagues lose everything over one punch too many during an arrest. You have to be cunning, like a predator lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. That night, while Sophia slept, I'd given her a nerve pill I had saved from an old case of insomnia. A veteran of this kind of trauma, I sat in the kitchen with a warm beer I barely touched, my laptop open on the scratch table. I logged into her account. She had given me the password with a trembling voice. It's Sophie 12 stars, Dad, but don't tell anyone. And checked everything, hour after hour. The clock striking 3, 4, dawn tinging the curtains gray. The comments on her Instagram photos were a trail of poison. You look so hot today in that pink sweater, Sophie. Can you see your breasts? I want to bite them. On TikTok, obsessive likes on every video where she danced with friends to silly pop songs, her slim body moving with the innocence of pre-adolescence, and underneath, private messages that made me clench my teeth until my jaw hurt. I want to lick you all over, starting with those pink lips that bite when you're nervous. Imagine my tongue going down your neck until... She had posted innocent stories of her school outings. September 15th, Mates Forever School. And he would respond with fire and devil emojis, but also with screenshots of her walking down the sidewalk, taken from a car parked 100 meters away, the angle low as if he were crouching in the driver's seat. The worst part was the patterns, those threads that wove the web of harassment. The messages always arrived at the same time, like a demonic clock. 7:45 a.m., just as he dropped her off at the gate and the entrance bell rang. 3:20 p.m., the exact minute she left with the bustle of the other girls. Once, a 2-minute audio clip that I played with the volume low, my heart in my throat, his hoarse voice, distorted perhaps with a cheap app, whispering like a sick lover. I'm watching you now, Sophie. Turn your head to the right. See the big tree with the crooked branches? That's where I am, in the gray sedan, thinking about what it would be like to slip my hand under your skirt, feel your soft skin, your warmth. Don't run, my love. Just look at me. I checked the locations, the metadata from the messages, a trick I learned in a cybercrime course years ago, all geolocated within a 2-block radius of the school, an invisible circle of terror. This son of a bitch was stalking her like a ghost, invisible but omnipresent, and each discovery was another nail in the coffin of my sanity. The next day, Thursday, October 5th, I took her to school myself, breaking my routine of leaving her with our neighbor, Mrs. Rosa. I'll wait for you today, Sophie. No going out alone, I told her at breakfast, and she nodded with a fragile smile. Thanks, Dad. Will you tell me about your patrol later? About the thieves you catch? I tried to joke. Sure, my miniature detective. But you tell me about that dragon of yours. Does it fly or breathe fire? She laughed a little, the sound like a balm. And in the car, we sang a silly song from her childhood. Renato the frog has a secret, our out-of-tune voices filling the Ford. But this time, I didn't leave. I parked a block away, engine off, binoculars in hand, the same ones I used on drug surveillance, my heart beating irregularly. At 7:50, I saw it. A pearl gray sedan, no license plates visible from my angle, parked on the corner opposite the gate, half hidden by a street fruit stand. The driver was a blurry silhouette behind the tinted glass, but I could have sworn he was smoking a cigarette, the gray smoke lazily drifting out the half-open window, dissipating in the morning air. Sophia entered the courtyard, her figure dwindling among the crowd of uniforms, and he didn't move, just a subtle tilt of his head, like a wolf sniffing its prey. I waited until the bell rang, a metallic clang that reverberated in my ears, and then I started slowly, passing by him with my pulse racing. I turned my head just enough to catch a fleeting glimpse. 3-day stubble, a baseball cap pulled low over his hair, sunglasses reflecting the rising sun. I didn't recognize him, or so I thought at the time, but I jotted down the partial license plate number in my notebook, ABC 7-something, the rest blurred by street dust. At the police station during lunch, a stale ham sandwich in the break room, I asked Ramon, a trusted colleague with access to the database, to run a discreet check. Look for a gray sedan, license plate ABC 7, possible owner in the area, I whispered, pretending it was for a traffic report. Nothing. Fake license plate, or stolen from a junkyard. I'll let you know if anything comes up, Javi, Ramon muttered, and I nodded, but the knot in my stomach tightened. The following days were a slow hell, a drip of acid corroding everything. On Friday, Sophia left school looking pale, clinging to my hand like a lifeline. Dad, he sent another one today. He says he saw me talking to Lucia at recess, that he wants to be my only friend. At home, we replayed the message together. Sophie, why are you smiling at that girl? I'm the one who really loves you. Tomorrow, wear a red ribbon in your hair so I can see you from afar. I hugged her as she cried, reminding her of a flashback I pulled from my memory to calm her down. Remember when you were 5 and we went camping at the lake? Just you and me because Mom had the flu. We set up the tent crooked and you said you were the queen of the bears. That night, under the stars, you promised me you would always be my brave one. And you are, Sophie. This is just a big bad wolf, but I'll hunt it down. She sniffed. But Dad, what if it finds me? What if it comes home? Never, I swear on my badge. The harassment continued week after week. A whole month of lengthening shadows. October gave way to November, yellow leaves covering the sidewalks like rotten confetti, and the messages mutated from insinuations to veiled threats. On a torrential Monday, October 16th, a new video arrived at 3:25 p.m. while I waited for her under a tattered umbrella. She opened it in the car, by mistake, and her scream made me slam on the brakes. It was him again, in that gloomy room, but now with a cheap inflatable doll, the kind they sell in sleazy sex shops, dressed in a pleated skirt similar to Sophia's, the plastic crackling under his hands. He mounted her like a man possessed, moaning her name in a voice drowned out by the storm outside. Sophie, my Sophie, feel how I fill you, as he inserted a kitchen knife, not really into the doll, but enough to tear the latex with a dull pop. Bleeding air that whistled like a lament. Soon it will be you, my love. If you don't come to me, I'll have to come to you, ended the clip, with his laughter muffled like a gurgle from a sewer, water dripping from the ceiling in the background. That night, impromptu therapy in the kitchen. Tell me everything, Sophie. From the beginning. She spoke between sips of hot chocolate, her voice trembling. It started with, Hi, I'm Nico. I saw your dragon story. I liked it, Dad, because no one at school ever says nice things to me. Then he asked me for photos. and I sent him one from the park. But one day he said, "Take off your jacket, I want to see you better." And I got scared, but I didn't delete the chat because, I don't know, I was afraid he would get mad. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "You did the right thing telling me now. Sweetheart, tomorrow we'll block everything and Dad will investigate." But we didn't block him. I used it as bait, responding sporadically as her, "Please, no more videos, they give me nightmares." And he took the bait. The nightmares are because you miss me. Dream about me tonight, imagining my hands on you. Inevitably, I had a flashback that night as I watched over her sleep. Sophia, at 7 years old, on her first day of elementary school. I took her by the hand to the gate, she in her impeccable new uniform, the red bow in her hair like a banner. "Dad, what if I don't like the teachers? What if the kids laugh at me?" I knelt down, looking her in the eyes. "Then you tell them that your daddy is a police officer and catches bad dragons. And if not, you call me, and I'll come running." She laughed, kissed my gum-sticky cheek, and skipped inside. Now that same little girl was trembling under the sheets because of a digital monster. How had I failed to protect her? I patrolled with my nerves on edge, every shadow in the corners a potential stalker. I shared the shift with Marcos Herrera, a guy my age, 45, gray beard, eyes sunken from divorces and double shifts, also a single father of a daughter, a little older than Sophia, Laura, who lived with his ex in the city. We always joked around on patrol, the radio crackling between us. "Javi, how many more nights without action until we rot here?" he would say, lighting a cigarette in the passenger seat. "Better that way, Marcos. Action brings problems. How's Laura, still with that idiot boyfriend?" He laughed bitterly. "Growing up too fast. Yesterday she asked me for money for a dress. Girls, Javi, they break your heart." Or so he thought. In retrospect, those conversations were seeds of foreshadowing, his gaze shifting when he mentioned Sophia. "Your Sophie must be an angel, with those eyes you describe." Once, on October 20th, during a break at a roadside cafe, he lent me his phone because mine had run out of battery. "Here, call home." And there, in his search history, half deleted, I saw San Martin school dismissal times. I dismissed it as paranoia. The harassment continued, December bringing bone-chilling cold. Twisted Christmas messages. "Merry Christmas, Sophie. Imagine my gift inside you hot and sticky." Weekly videos, escalating. One with her photo superimposed on the naked body of a teenage model, crudely animated to dance. Sophia shut herself away more, refusing to go out with friends. Nightly conversations became ritual. "Dad, do you think he knows where I live?" "No, sweetheart. But if he does, I'll put him in jail for life." Flashback, her 8th birthday. A party in the backyard with balloons and chocolate cake. Her blowing out the candles with a comical grunt. I wish Dad would never leave. Me, drunk on cheap beer, silently swearing the same thing. January, the peak of terror. A live audio during recess. "Sophie, you're on the swing now with your hair down. Lift your skirt higher. Let me see." She ran to the bathroom calling me hysterically. I kept watch that afternoon. Saw the sedan again. License plate ABC 734 now clear. Check. Registered to a certain Emir Herrera. The world tilted. I decided to act on February 15th, 3 months after it started. Fake profile. Sophie secret. Altered photo. "Stop, you scare me." Him. "Come to the park gazebo, 10 p.m. Bring the skirt." Fake flirting. "Okay, sweetie." Preparations. Revolver, gloves. To Sophia. "Stay with Rosa. I love you." Eternal hug. The world turned red. A viscous, pulsating red that clouded my vision, as if my eyes had been flooded with the blood of my own fury. All the pent-up rage, the months of messages Sophia read to me in a low voice, her voice broken like crushed glass. The sleepless nights replaying those disgusting videos, the sound of his horse panting engraved on my brain like a virus. The shadows in every corner of the school, imagining his dirty hands touching my daughter's skin, exploded in my chest like a fragmentation grenade, shards of hatred embedding themselves in every muscle, every tendon. You son of a bitch," I roared, my voice coming out of my throat like a guttural, animalistic howl that reverberated in the fog of the park like the echo of a gunshot in a tunnel. I lunged at him like a mad bull. No, like a father possessed by ancient demons, my feet crunching on the gravel like bones breaking under my boots. My right fist hit him first in the jaw, a solid, dry impact that resonated like a rotten branch splitting in two under a woodcutter's axe. I felt the bone give way under my knuckles, a subtle but unmistakable crack, followed by a warm stream of blood that splattered my shirt like fresh, arterial paint. The metallic, salty smell invading my nostrils, mingling with the stench of damp earth and stale urine from the bush where I'd hidden. Marcos staggered backward, his tall and hunched body crashing into the rusty railing of the gazebo with a metallic clang that vibrated in the cold air, as if the iron itself were screaming in vicarious pain. His eyes, those eyes I had seen laughing at the police station during endless shifts, opened wide, the whites injected with red by instant terror, the dilated irises reflecting my silhouette distorted by rage. I didn't give him time to recover. I followed his movement, my left boot stepping on his thigh to immobilize him, the weight of my patrolman's body hardened by years of gym and adrenaline crushing the soft flesh under the denim of his pants. I straddled his chest, my knees digging into his sides like staples, feeling his ribs give slightly under the pressure, a dull pop that made me smile with a wild, wolfish grin. He kicked weakly at first, his legs twitching like those of a dying insect, his dirty fingernails that I now imagined scratching Sophia's skin in twisted dreams, raking my left forearm, leaving red gashes that burned like liquid fire, drops of my own blood spurting in shiny beads under the dim light of the distant street lamp. But I was a machine, a gale of paternal fury unleashed, and my blows rained down on him like hammer blows on an anvil of flesh, right on the nose. The cartilage sank with a wet crunch, like stepping on a branch full of sap, and blood burst forth in a crimson geyser splattering my face, hot and sticky, dripping down my chin until it mixed with the salty sweat on my neck. The bridge of his nose was crushed, deformed into a red and white mess of splintered bone and torn mucosa, bubbling with every gasping breath that escaped his open mouth in a muffled scream. Left to the eye, my fist connected with the socket, the cheekbone cracking like eggshell under the impact, the eyeball instantly swelling like a purple, misshapen balloon, the skin around it tearing open in a gash that bled profusely, a thick red thread snaking down his cheek to his ear, where it pooled in a tiny puddle that glistened like poison mercury. "How could you, Marcos? My daughter. My Sophia." I spat through clenched teeth, the words coming out like bile, each syllable a lash. My right knee sank into his stomach, pressing down with all my weight, feeling his abdominal muscles contract and then collapse, the air escaping from his lungs in a gurgling, choked groan, as if he were drowning in his own bile. I saw his abdomen sink, his shirt soaked with sweat, and the beginnings of vomit rising up his esophagus, an acidic burp that smelled of stale beer and fear. He babbled something incoherent. "Javi, wait. It's a misunderstanding. Please." But his words were drowned out by a stream of blood gushing from his broken nose, bubbling between his split lips, chipped teeth peeking out from the red foam like fragments of broken porcelain. I grabbed him by the neck of his sweatshirt, the rough, damp fabric under my gloved fingers, gloves that were now soaked with his blood, slippery as guts, and lifted him just enough to slam his head against the rusty iron of the railing. The first blow was a dull thud, his skull bouncing with a hollow echo, the skin on his forehead splitting open in an irregular 3-centimeter gash, the flesh opening like a red zipper, exposing the white splintered bone beneath, a flap of skin hanging loosely like a piece of raw meat on a butcher's hook. Fresh blood spurted in a rhythmic pulse, synchronized with his terrified heart, splattering the rust on the metal in drops that ran like crimson tears. Second blow, harder, the impact reverberating through my arms to my shoulders, the frontal bone crunching audibly. A crack I felt vibrate under my palm, as if I were cracking a nut that was too hard. A tooth flew out of his mouth on the rebound, white and bloody, rolling across the gravel with a tiny clink, lost in the darkness. Third blow. Now it was personal, visceral. I lifted him higher, his feet skidding uselessly on the damp ground, and I brought him down with all the force of a betrayed father. His skull hitting the iron with a wet crack that sounded like a ripe watermelon bursting under the mallet. The skin tore deeper, a 5-centimeter gash exposing not only bone, but a glimpse of the gray pulsating cerebral membrane beneath, a subtle tremor like the fluttering of a trapped butterfly. Blood and cerebrospinal fluid mixed into a thick broth that dripped down his temple, the metallic smell intensifying, mixed with a stench of meconium, of imminent death. I felt his cervical vertebrae crunch under my fingers, his neck twisted at an unnatural angle, his jugular pulse beating against my palm like a bird caught in a trap. Each beat weaker, more erratic, pumping blood that stained my gloves up to my elbows. I wanted to kill him. God, how I wanted to. In my mind, gory flashes of revenge, his windpipe collapsing under my thumb, cartilage snapping like dry twigs, the hiss of air escaping through the wound as he choked, eyes bulging and bloodshot, swollen tongue protruding between bruised lips. I imagined opening his chest with my bare hands, nails digging into the skin of his sternum, pulling until the ribcage opened like an oyster, exposing his frantically beating heart, swollen veins bursting in arterial spurts that would splash the fog like red rain. I would gut him alive, warm, slippery intestines uncoiling in my fists, the stench of shit and bile filling the air as he begged, "Javi, for Sophie's sake, forgive me." But I would just laugh, a maniacal sound, cutting off his flaccid member with my tactical knife, the same one I used in raids, watching him bleed into black pools, avenging every video where he had desecrated my daughter's photo with his rottenness. His eyes, now one swollen shut into a purple slit and the other fixed on me with pure animal terror, glistened with tears mixed with blood, his face contorted into a mask of raw flesh, cheekbones exposed in oozing lacerations, split lips hanging in shreds. "Javi. It hurts, for God's sake," he moaned, his voice a gurgling thread, blood dripping from his mouth to stain my lap, warm like fresh urine. At that moment, the father in me roared louder than the cop. Flashbacks of Sophia, her innocent little face in the video splattered with his disgusting semen, drove me to squeeze harder, my fingers sinking into the flesh of his neck, feeling his larynx give way, a cartilaginous pop that made him cough blood in my face, fine particles like scarlet dew. But deep in my rage, a residual whisper from Sergeant Ruiz, the one who had sworn to protect and serve, not just avenge, stopped me. "Don't kill him here. Make him suffer legally. Let him rot in a cell where others like him will gut him alive." I let go for a second, his body collapsing into a gasping heap, his chest rising and falling in spasms, vomit and blood mixing in a pool beneath his head, the acrid smell stinging my eyes. He rolled to one side, coughing convulsively, a thread of yellow bile hanging from his split lower lip, but I pulled the revolver from its holster with my left hand, my right still dripping with his blood, slippery on the grip, the cold metal contrasting with the heat of my feverish skin. I pressed the barrel against his temple, the black circle kissing his lacerated skin, a trail of blood staining the steel, and the click of the hammer cocking echoed like a final verdict in the stillness of the park, the only sound apart from his ragged breathing and the steady drip of blood on the gravel. "Tell me why, Marcos. Tell me how you started this, every fucking detail, or I'll blow your brains out right here and say he resisted arrest," I hissed. my index finger grazing the trigger, tempted to pull it, imagining the explosion. Skull exploding in a pink mist of bone and brain, gray fragments splattering the railing, the body convulsing in pools of blood that would quickly cool in the fog. Tears mixed with blood ran down his shattered face, contorted in a grimace of absolute terror, his nose a flat mess that whistled with every inhalation, his good eye blinking erratically. It was a game at first, he babbled, his voice a red gurgle, spitting out a broken tooth in the process, which landed on my boot with a wet plop. I saw her at school, so innocent, like my Laura before she left with her mother, with that bastard ex. I just wanted to get close to her, send her a message like a normal guy. But it became addictive. Her photos, her voice in the audios I asked her for. I started following her, recording her from the car. God, Javi, I would have taken care of her, made her mine forever, in that cabin I have in the mountains far away from everything. His confession was a broken torrent, between sobs of pain, details that turned my stomach more than the blows. How he hacked her account with a fake link in a dragon game she played. How he printed her selfies and used them to masturbate 3-4 times a day in his filthy basement. The same basement I knew from a team barbecue, smelling of mold and beer. Rubbing his swollen cock against her smiling face until he ejaculated in thick spurts that dried into white crusts. How he fantasized about kidnapping her during a school outing, chloroform on a cloth. I bought it online, Javi, just in case. Taking her to the cabin to take care of her like a princess. Tying her up with soft ropes at first, then not so soft, entering her while she cried his name. Each word was a nail in my skull, and I pressed the barrel harder, the skin on her temple whitening under the pressure, a bruise blooming like a poisonous flower. In that moment, with his life hanging on my finger, I hated him more than ever. He wasn't a movie monster with horns and fangs, but an ordinary man, my patrol partner, who had let the darkness eat away at him from the inside, rotting like an apple at the bottom of the crate. I handcuffed him with my own cuffs, the ones we used together on raids, now cold and stained with his coagulating blood, the metallic click sealing his fate, and dragged him to my car, his inert body scraping the gravel, leaving a red trail like that of a wounded slug. He sobbed, a wet, broken sound, begging for forgiveness between coughs of blood, but his eyes... There was still something sinister there, a glint of possession that wouldn't fade, as if even in pain he saw her, Sophia, as a stolen trophy. On the way to the police station, with him slumped in the backseat, moaning with every bump, his head tilted, blood dripping onto the upholstery, forming puddles that smelled of iron and defeat. He told me more fragments, as if confessing would ease the burning in his broken bones. How he had planned to climb in, break into the house one night, cover her mouth, and take her away while I was on patrol. I would have loved her, Javi, really. Pure disgust. I pulled the car over to the side of the road, vomited in the darkness, bitter bile mixed with the metallic taste of his blood in my mouth, and then handed it over to the police station like a bag of bloody trash, throwing it at the chief's feet with a brief explanation, the USB drive of evidence trembling in my bloody hand. The trial was a blur of formalities. Marcos with his face half rebuilt, his nose permanently crooked, his eyes scarred, making him look like a nightmare pirate. Pleading guilty but blaming post-traumatic stress and divorce. 10 years, but he was out in 5 for good behavior. The system spitting him back into the world like a gnawed bone. And at night, when Sophia sleeps, now in weekly therapy and with a smile that is slowly returning, I watch the shadows, the scars on my knuckles, reminding me of the gore of that night, knowing that monsters like him don't die. They just wait in the darkness, with wounds oozing hatred for you to let your guard down. And if he comes back, there will be no gun, just my hands and a redder, more definitive ending. I don't know what else to do. Every night, when I turn off the lights, I feel like the world closes in around me like a trap. My heart beats so hard that it echoes in my ears, and I lie still, listening to the silence that isn't silence at all because he's out there, waiting for me. And I, Helena, 32 years old, find myself trapped in this never-ending nightmare. It's real, too real, and no one seems to understand. It all started 6 months ago so innocently that it hurts to remember. After a nasty divorce, I moved into a small apartment in North Seattle. I needed routines, something to get me out of bed without feeling like the world was crushing me. So I joined a local gym. "Empower yourself," the poster said. I wanted to believe it. The first day I arrived nervous. With new sneakers and a spinning class at 7 in the morning. I sweated, I panted, and in the end I felt alive. Like I could conquer the day. That's when I saw him. He was on the treadmills, tall, thin, with short brown hair and a gray t-shirt clinging to his back. He ran with fierce concentration, ignoring the world. I didn't think much of it. But when I got off the bike, I felt his gaze. A touch like a finger on the back of my neck. I turned my head, and there he was, drying his face with a towel. Our eyes met. He smiled. A brief, almost shy smile. I nodded politely and went on my way. The next day, he was there again. This time he raised his hand in greeting. "Good work today," he said in a deep, calm voice. I was surprised, but replied, "Thanks, you too." He was polite, harmless. "I'm Mark." He introduced himself, extending his hand. I shook it, noticing how rough his palm was. "Helena," I replied. The following days became routine. I would arrive at 7, and he was always there. Always a greeting, a fleeting comment. "I saw you improve on that virtual hill yesterday." Or, "That stretch is great, can you teach me?" They were subtle compliments, nothing aggressive. After my divorce, where my ex had made me feel invisible, these attentions were like a balm. They made me feel seen, attractive. I started smiling back at him, responding with more than monosyllables. A week later, I was walking out of the gym toward my car when I heard footsteps behind me. It was him. "Hey, Helena, are you going downtown? I can give you a ride." I shook my head, laughing nervously. "I live nearby. It's only a 10-minute walk." He insisted, "It's raining a little. I don't want you to get wet." I accepted, just to be nice. I got into his old truck that smelled of coffee and worn leather. He dropped me off at the door of my building, and as we said goodbye, he said, "See you tomorrow." For the first time, I felt a tingling sensation in the back of my neck, not from pleasure, from alertness. The next day, he was waiting for me at the exit. "I thought you might want some company." We walked together because he insisted. He talked the whole way, about his job as a mechanic, how he hated Seattle traffic. When we reached my door, he took something out of his pocket. A protein bar. "I saw you looking at these last week. Try this one." I took it, muttering a thank you, and he stood there a second too long, staring at the building as if memorizing it. Then the notes started. The next day, in my locker room, I found one stuck to the door. "You're stronger than you think. M." My heart skipped a beat. How did he know which locker was mine? I asked Sarah, the instructor, but she laughed. Must be some secret admirer. He spends all his time here. I didn't laugh. That night when I got home, I checked the windows twice before closing the curtains. A week later, the notes turned into gifts. A bottle of electrolyte water on my spinning bike labeled, "So you don't get dehydrated." Then sports socks in my locker, the exact color I had once mentioned. I started arriving earlier, leaving through the side door, but he was always there. Always. As if he knew my schedule better than I did. The walks became daily. He insisted on accompanying me. "It's dangerous to walk alone so early," he said, and I foolishly didn't want to hurt his feelings. I noticed how his eyes wandered to my apartment as we passed by. "Do you live on the 3rd floor?" he asked once, pointing to my window. "Yes, why?" "Just curious. It looks cozy." That day, when I got home, I closed the curtains tightly. Then the letter arrived. One night, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No stamp, just my name, Helena. I opened it with trembling hands. Every day I see you, you inspire me. You're like a light in this gray city. I don't know what I would do without our conversations. Yours, Mark. My stomach churned. How had he gotten my address? The letters arrived every other day after that, always perfumed with cheap cologne that made me nauseous. They talked about me, how my laughter lit up the room, how he imagined what my hair would feel like between his fingers. I see you daydreaming sometimes, Helena. What are you thinking about? Someone like me? I started tearing them up without reading them all the way through, but he noticed. At the gym, his smile would tighten. You haven't answered my last one, he said one morning, blocking my way to the exit. I shook my head. I'm busy, Mark. He stepped aside, but his eyes were like dark wells. I tried to avoid him. I changed my schedule, classes at 6. I arrived by taxi, but he adapted. One afternoon, in the gym cafeteria, I sat alone. He appeared out of nowhere, sitting across from me without asking. I missed you this morning. The place was crowded, but the noise died down. Mark, I need space, I said, my voice a hoarse whisper. He blinked. Space? But we're friends, Helena. I got up and ran to the bathroom. That night, I saw him outside my window for the first time. It was midnight. I was in the kitchen when a soft tap against the glass made me turn around. I pulled the curtain aside a crack. There he was, Mark, standing on the sidewalk 3 stories below, looking straight up. He raised his hand, waving. I moved away from the window, turning off the light. I stood still, breathing shallowly, until I heard his footsteps receding. The next day, I didn't go to the gym, but at 7 o'clock in the evening, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole, him, with a paper bag, smiling. Helena, I know you're there. I brought dinner, sushi, your favorite. My blood ran cold. How did he know? The doorbell rang again and again for 15 minutes, then silence. But he hadn't left. From the window, I saw him sitting on the curb in front of my building, the bag beside him, smoking and staring at my window. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I forced myself to go out, but he was at the gym, watching me from the treadmill without smiling. His eyes were cold, accusatory. I left through the back door, walking quickly down the alley. I heard footsteps, fast, heavy. I turned my head. Him, half a block away, speeding up. I ran. God, I ran like never before, my breath burning my lungs. I got to my car and started it with trembling hands. I looked in the rearview mirror. He had stopped at the corner watching me. The following weeks were hell. The letters became more intense. Why are you avoiding me, Helena? I just want to take care of you. He left flowers at my door, red roses with notes. I think about you all day. Once, a drawing, a cartoon of us holding hands. My face was perfect. His was distorted, with eyes that were too big. I spoke to the gym manager. I'm sorry, Helena, but without a restraining order, there's not much we can do. He's a star member. One night, after yoga, I saw him waiting for me in the parking lot, leaning against my car. I saw you leave earlier. Are you okay? I backed away. Mark, leave me alone. He took a step forward. You don't understand. I need you, Helena. You're the only good thing in my life. I ran to my car and drove away with tears in my eyes. That night, the tapping on the window returned, more insistent. I peeked out, trembling. He wasn't on the sidewalk, but on the first-floor balcony, looking up with binoculars. I hid in the bathroom and called my sister. It's harassment. Call the police, she said. But when I hung up, the doorbell started ringing. It didn't stop. Knock, knock, knock. For hours. I covered my ears, curled up on the floor. At dawn, it stopped. And then it started again, every night, a little closer. I found muddy footprints on the stairs, leading up to my floor, a gift at the door, a cheap necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. So you can keep me close to your heart. I threw it down the drain. The The attempt to break in almost broke me. It was Friday, pouring rain. I climbed the stairs with my keys jingling. As I opened the door, something moved. Him, Mark, sitting on the floor in front of my door, knees to his chest. "Helena," he whispered. His eyes were red and swollen. "I can't go on without you," I screamed. I pushed him aside to get in and close the door. I heard him sobbing on the other side, tapping softly. "Please let me in." I called the police. 2 officers arrived 20 minutes later. They handcuffed him. "I'm just a friend," he stammered. "We'll take him in for trespassing," said one officer. "But with no prior charges, they'll probably release him with a warning." For 2 days, peace. I went to the gym with my heart in my mouth, but he wasn't there. The manager said he'd been suspended. I sighed with relief. It wasn't over. A week later, the notes returned. "It hurts that you don't trust me, but I'll wait." Then came the nighttime visits. First, low whistles from the street. Then the doorbell. Hours of incessant ringing. One night, I heard a click in the lock. I woke up in a sweat. Had he tried to get in? I changed the locks the next day. The day I missed the gym was the worst. I had a migraine. I stayed in bed all day. At 6 in the evening, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Him, sitting on the step at the entrance to the building, waiting. I heard the doorwoman asking him, "Who are you looking for?" "A friend, Lena." A lie. But she let him in. He sat there, from 6 until midnight, motionless, smoking, the rain soaking him. At 11, I called the police. "He's at the door of my building. He won't leave." They came and questioned him. "Sir, you have to leave." They put him in the patrol car for a few hours. They promised to release him far away. But at 3 in the morning, the doorbell started ringing again. Hours of ringing. I covered my head with a pillow, sobbing. Then began the phase that has me on the verge of collapse. He doesn't just come at night. Now he's always there. Always. One morning I opened my laptop to work and found an email. From him. I don't know how he got my work address. "Helena, I don't understand why you're punishing me. I just want to talk. We have something special. Don't ruin it." I blocked the email. Another one came from a different address. And another. And another. 2 days later, my boss called me. "Helena, do you know a guy named Mark? He called the office asking for you. He said he was your boyfriend and was worried because you weren't answering your phone." My blood ran cold. "He's not my boyfriend. He's a stalker. Please don't give him any information." My boss muttered something about contacting security, but his tone was uncomfortable, as if I were the problem. That night when I got home, there was something new. Not flowers. Not letters. A photograph. Taped to my door with duct tape. It was of me, sleeping, in my bed, through my bedroom window. I took it with trembling hands, tears blurring my vision. When had he taken it? How many times had he been there? Watching me sleep. I called the police. They came, took the photo as evidence. "This is aggravated stalking," said the officer, an older man with a tired expression. "You can apply for a restraining order now." I started the process that night, filling out forms with trembling hands. It will take 2 to 3 weeks, they told me. I didn't have 3 weeks. 2 nights later, I woke up at 2 in the morning to a strange sound. Not the doorbell. Something worse. Scraping. Metal against metal. I got up quietly, my heart racing, and crept to the door. I looked through the peephole. He was there, in the dark hallway, with something in his hand. A screwdriver. He was trying to remove the screws from my door hinges. I screamed. I banged on the door from the inside. "Go away. I'll call the police." He stopped. Looking up at the peephole as if he could see me, he smiled, a slow, deliberate smile. Then he left, his footsteps echoing on the stairs. I called the police. It took them 40 minutes to arrive. By then, he was gone. "Do you have proof that he tried to break in?" the officer asked. "The marks on the hinges," I shouted, pointing to them. But they were subtle. almost invisible. They could be old, he said. No video, no witnesses. He didn't finish the sentence. That night, I bought a security camera, a cheap one from Amazon that connects to Wi-Fi. I installed it pointing at my door. If he came back, I would record him. He came back. The next night. At 3 a.m, my phone vibrated with an alert from the camera. Motion detected. I opened the app with trembling hands. There he was, sitting on the ground in front of my door, just staring at the camera, doing nothing, just sitting, watching, for 2 hours. I stopped sleeping. Every noise woke me up. The creaking of the building, the wind against the windows, the doorbell, which now rang 3 to 5 times a night, always at different times, always when I least expected it. A week later, my car was vandalized. All 4 tires were flat, and bitch was scratched into the hood with something sharp. The parking lot cameras weren't working. Of course they weren't. Then I lost my job. My boss called me into his office, looking uncomfortable. "Helena, we understand you're going through a difficult time, but your performance has dropped. Customers are complaining. And that man keeps calling. It's affecting the company's image." I was fired with 2 weeks severance pay. 2 weeks. Without a job, unable to leave my apartment without panicking, I began to fall apart. I stopped showering. I ate the bare minimum. I lived in my pajamas with all the lights on, watching the security camera on my phone as if it were television. And he knew. The notes changed. "I know you're suffering. Let me help you. I can take care of you. You just have to open up to me. I've been watching you. You're thinner. Are you eating? I worry about you." 3 nights ago, I found something that broke me completely. An envelope under my door. Inside, a lock of hair. My hair. Brown with copper highlights, just like mine. And a note. A souvenir from when you were asleep. It smells like you. That means he got in. At some point while I was asleep, drugged by the anxiety pills the doctor had prescribed me, he entered my apartment. He approached my bed. He cut my hair. And he left without me knowing. I called the police, crying hysterically. They didn't come. "Send a unit when one is available," said the dispatcher in a bored tone. No one ever came. Now I'm here, writing this on my laptop at 4 a.m, with the baseball bat on my knees and the security camera showing the empty hallway. But I know he'll come. He always does. The doorbell will ring soon, that knock, knock, knock that pierces my skull. Or maybe this time he won't knock. Maybe this time he'll just come in. The restraining order came yesterday. A piece of paper that says he has to stay 100 meters away from me. As if a piece of paper could stop him. As if anything could. An hour ago, I got one last message. I don't know what number it was from because he changes them constantly. It said, "Tonight. I can't wait any longer. I'm coming in. I'm going to hold you. And you're going to understand that this is love. Don't be afraid, Helena. Soon we'll be together forever." I called the police, again. They said they'll send a patrol car. When one is available. I called my sister, but she's 1,000 kilometers away. I called the doorman, but he doesn't answer at this hour. I'm alone. With the bat. With the phone. With the locks that I now know are useless because he has a way of getting in. He always has. The doorbell just rang. Ring, ring, ring. Louder now, more insistent. And then silence. Worse than the doorbell. The silence means he's doing something. It means he found another way. The camera shows the empty hallway, but I know he's there. Somewhere, nearby. I just heard something. Not from the hallway, from the balcony. That scraping again, metal against metal. He's on the fire escape. He's climbing toward my window. I'm Helena, 32 years old, and this is the last thing I'm going to write. Because when I finish this paragraph, I'll have to decide, do I stay here, paralyzed, waiting for him to come in, or do I open the door and run into the street where he might also be waiting for me? There are no good options, only fear. Pure liquid fear that fills me until I drown. The scraping stops. I look toward the bedroom window. The curtains are closed, but I see a shadow, a silhouette, fingers testing the glass. The doorbell rings again, but now it's coming from everywhere. The doorbell, the intercom, my phone ringing with an unknown number, all at the same time. And then the voice, his voice, from the other side of the door. Helena, I know you're awake. I know you're listening to me. Open up. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to talk. I just want to be close to you. Why don't you understand? This is love. This is what it means to love someone so much you can't live without them. My hand trembles on the bat. Tears blind me. The phone falls from my lap. The doorbell doesn't stop. It never stops. And I don't know what to do anymore. This is what stalking does. It reduces you to this, a cornered animal waiting for the final blow. No way out, no hope. If anyone finds this, if anyone reads these words, please believe women when they say someone is stalking them. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't say she's exaggerating or it's just an intense crush. I am Dr. Alexander Hale, a cognitive behavioral therapist with an office on the Upper West Side. I am 52 years old, divorced, and have been listening to confessions for 20 years. I thought I knew all the patterns of human behavior. I was wrong. Sophia Grant arrived 6 months ago, 34 years old, freelance editor, brown hair, and green eyes that absorbed light. She sat on my couch with her hands clasped and told me about her abusive ex, her insomnia, her feeling of invisibility. No one really sees me, she said. It's like I'm a rough draft that someone forgot to polish. I listened to her, rephrased her words, prescribed mindfulness exercises. As she left, she smiled. For the first time, I feel like someone understands me. The first gifts were innocent. Organic tea after the second session. She told me she likes tea in the afternoons, she wrote in the note. I didn't remember mentioning it, but patients sometimes pay more attention than you do. By the third week, each box of tea came with a note written on cream-colored paper, the handwriting leaning forward. This is for the long nights. Thank you for seeing me. The tea was always my favorite variety, the one I mentioned only once. How did she remember it so precisely? In the 5th session, I found a leather bookmark on my notebook. A quote from Jung was engraved on it. Until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. She had left it right on the page where I wrote about her dreams. I had mentioned Jung, but not that specific quote. That night, I reviewed my notes on her. Sophia Grant, intelligent, introspective, codependent. As I reread her transcribed words, "You see me," I felt a tingling sensation in the back of my neck. I looked out the window. The city lights flickered like eyes. I shook my head. Professional paranoia. The 7th session brought a book, Camus' The Stranger, with post-it notes marking every page about alienation. I thought of you when I read it. We shared that elegant loneliness. I never mentioned Camus in therapy. Or did I? My memory was beginning to fail me. That week, she described a dream where I saved her from an abyss. Your hands were warm, doctor. I clung to them. She leaned forward, her knees almost touching mine. My voice came out hoarse as I replied, "That sounds like a metaphor for trust." Her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The gifts became intimate. A gray cashmere scarf, the same shade as mine. "So you don't get cold on your thoughtful walks." I had left it on the coat rack in my office once. How did she remember it in such detail? Then came the bottle of hand lotion. Sandalwood scent, identical to mine. I had been careless when touching the dispenser during a session, but had she paid so much attention? I installed an additional camera in the office, recording on a 24-hour loop. In the 9th session, her eyes scanned the room as if looking for something lost. "You seem tense today, doctor. Is something wrong?" As she said goodbye, she left a framed photo on my desk. It was me, standing at the office window, looking out at the street. The photo had been taken from the building across the street. "Where did you get this?" I asked when I called her that night. Her answer was a whisper. "I wanted to capture a moment when you looked so thoughtful. It makes me feel close to you, doctor." I checked the security tapes. She had arrived early that week, but the photo was from another day. Had she been watching me? That night, I walked around my apartment turning on all the lights, checking locks that were already secure. 2 weeks later, I found my tie on the couch in my office. The navy blue one I had left on the coat rack. It was carefully folded, scented with her cologne, jasmine and vanilla, and tied with a red ribbon. The note. "I imagined it around my neck, doctor. A bond between us." My hands trembled. I called my supervisor, Dr. Ellis. "Boundary violation with a patient. Obsessive transference." He laughed. "Classic. Put some distance between you. Refer her if necessary." I tried to refer her. "Sophia, I think another perspective could enrich your process." Her eyes clouded over, not with tears, but with something cold. "But you see me, doctor. No one else does. Why are you sending me away?" As she stood up, she brushed my hand with hers, a fleeting, electric touch. "Don't get rid of me so easily," she murmured. That night, I got home after 9. The door to my apartment was ajar. Had I left it that way? Impossible. I've been meticulous since the divorce. I pushed with my foot, searching for my keys as a weapon. The apartment was dark. The air smelled of jasmine and vanilla, sweet and cloying. On the kitchen counter, a lock of brown hair tied with a red ribbon. Hers. The note. "A piece of me for you, doctor. Now we are intertwined." I checked the windows. All closed. How had she gotten in? I ran to the bedroom. I turned on the hallway light, and there she was. Sophia, asleep in my bed, under my sheets, her head on my pillow. She was wearing my gray flannel pajama shirt. My cat Milo was curled up at her feet, purring. I froze. Her face was serene, her eyelashes fluttering, her lips slightly parted. How long had she been there? Her eyes opened, green, focusing on me with deliberate slowness. "Dr. Hale," she murmured without surprise. "You're late. I waited for you with dinner, but it got cold." She sat up, the sheet falling to reveal her shoulder. "Come to bed. Talk to me." Like in the sessions, but without barriers. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" My voice came out shaky. She smiled, that sharp smile, and held out a hand. "I had a nightmare. Only you can calm it. I feel understood here, with you." As if we were one. I took a step back toward the door, but she sat up fully. "Don't go. Please. Tell me your dreams, doctor. I'll listen to you this time." I called the police from the hallway. Her voice whispered from inside. "I want you close, Alexander. Not as a patient." The officers escorted her away in handcuffs, babbling about misunderstandings and mutual transference. They took my statement in the kitchen. "This is serious, doctor. Have you noticed anything else?" I mentioned the gifts, the photos, but my mind was in turmoil. How much had I encouraged this? A restraining order arrived by certified mail. Sophia disappeared. Her number disconnected. Her office silent. I tried to get back to my routine, but the suspense didn't stop. I found notes in my mailbox. "I miss our talks. Do you miss me?" Photos of me in the park, taken from distant benches, a package, my lotion, now scented with jasmine. One morning, I arrived early at the office and found it ransacked. My notes about her scattered on the floor with annotations in her handwriting. "Here you lie. Here you desire me." I called security. The guards swore no one had entered. That night, I dreamed about her, but she wasn't stalking me. I was chasing her through endless corridors, whispering, "I see you," until she turned around and her face was mine. A week later, the office appeared untouched except for one thing. My personal diary, which I kept locked away at home, was on my desk. Open to an entry from 3 months ago. New patient today, Sophia Grant. Beautiful, intelligent. Reminds me of Sarah before the divorce. Must maintain professional boundaries. Panic overwhelmed me. I'd never brought that diary to the office. Had she broken into my apartment again? I changed the locks that afternoon. I installed a state-of-the-art alarm system. But 2 nights later, the alarm didn't go off when I found my mail open on the dining room table. Letters I had received from Sarah during the divorce, with lines underlined in red. "You were always too obsessive, Alexander. You suffocated me with your need to understand me." In the margin, Sophia's handwriting. "Do you see the pattern?" My therapist, Dr. Chen, suggested I was projecting. "Perhaps the line between caregiver and controller is thinner than you think, Alexander." His words stuck like thorns. I reviewed my old notes from sessions with Sophia. My own handwriting revealed uncomfortable truths. I extended the session by 15 minutes. I couldn't let her go when she was so vulnerable. I mentioned my divorce. I needed her to see that I'm human too. Her eyes remind me of Sarah. I need to be careful. Had I been the one to blur the lines first? The next month was a gradual descent. Photos of me sleeping appeared in my mailbox. I had installed cameras in my bedroom after the incident, but I checked them. No one was coming in. The photos were real, taken from an impossible angle. I searched every corner of the apartment for hidden cameras. Nothing. My practice began to deteriorate. I was late for sessions, forgot patients' names. One of them complained formally. Dr. Hale seemed more interested in looking out the window than listening to me. One afternoon, I found my office exactly as I had left it, except that the furniture had been rearranged. The sofa where Sophia sat was now in front of my chair, as if the roles had been reversed. On my seat was a note. "How does it feel to be watched, doctor?" That night, rain lashed against the windows. The doorbell rang at midnight. Through the peephole, I saw a figure wearing my gray coat and scarf. I opened the door, my heart racing. It was Sophia, but transformed. Short, blonde hair, eyes made up to look harder. When she spoke, her voice mimicked mine perfectly. "Dr. Hale, or should I say, Alexander, I've been thinking about what you said to me in the 3rd session. We all pursue what defines us." She held out her hand. In her palm was a lock of my freshly cut hair, from my comb in the office bathroom. I tried to close the door, but she stopped it with supernatural ease. "For months, you've dissected me, made me confess, made me feel seen. But what if it was the other way around? What if I was healing you?" I backed into the living room. She came in, locking the door behind her. "Your journal doesn't lie, Alexander. Sophia reflects my own shadows. Her obsession is a mirror of my need to be needed." Who was stalking whom? She took a folder out of her coat, my coat. She opened it on the table. Inside were copies of all my notes about her, but with annotations I didn't remember writing. I need her to depend on me. Her vulnerability makes me feel powerful. If I cure her, what will I have left? My own handwriting, my own blue pen. "When did you write this?" I whispered. She smiled. "You wrote them, Alexander, during the sessions. While I was talking, you wrote down your real thoughts. Then you transcribed them neatly for the official files. But you kept these originals at home. I just found them." I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. "That's not possible." "No." She moved closer, her jasmine-scented breath against my face. "Check your memory. Every gift I gave you, you suggested first. I like Earl Grey tea, you said in the 1st session. Camus captures modern loneliness, you mentioned in the 3rd. I just paid attention." My mind fragmented as I searched for memories. There were gaps, sessions where time seemed to jump, moments where I couldn't remember how a conversation had ended. "The gifts," I murmured. "The photo from the building across the street." "Your building across the street," she corrected me, "where you have a secondary office that you rent under another name, to observe your patients in their natural habitat, remember? It's in your unofficial resume, the one you keep on your laptop under the research folder." horror shot through me like ice. I vaguely remembered. Had I rented that space? For what? The tie, I continued, desperate to find contradictions. It was perfumed with your cologne. Your cologne, she said softly. I bought it because you wore it. It's on your credit card statement 3 weeks before I started therapy. Jasmine and vanilla. Your special sessions fragrance, as you called it in your diary. She knelt in front of me, her hand on my knee. The therapeutic gesture I used to show tactile empathy with select patients. Let me hear you now, Alexander. Tell me about your terror. Admit that you created me as much as I created you. Tears burned my eyes. I frantically searched my memories. How many times had I extended her sessions? How many times had I casually mentioned details of my life? How many times had I waited for her gifts with anticipation rather than concern? No, I whispered. You entered my home. You slept in my bed. At your invitation, she replied, pulling out her phone. She showed me text messages, my number, my words. Come when you need to feel safe. The key is under the doormat. The message dated 2 weeks before the incident. I didn't send that. Your phone, your handwriting, your number. She stood up. Or maybe you did it sleepwalking, Alexander. Like the notes you leave for yourself. Like the photos you take and forget. Like the midnight calls where you breathe silently until I hang up. Milo appeared from the shadows, rubbing against Sophia's legs as if he recognized her, as if she had been here many times before. The police, I said weakly. The restraining order. Which you requested yourself, she nodded, after confessing to the officer that you felt dangerously obsessed with a patient. It's in the report. I just played the part you wrote. She took off her coat, my coat, and hung it on the coat rack next to mine. 2 identical gray coats. When had I bought the second one? For 6 months, Alexander, we've been dancing this dance, but I'm not sure who was leading. She sat down in my reading chair, crossing her legs. Maybe we're both the therapist. Maybe we're both the patient. Maybe that's why we found each other. 2 mirrors looking for their own reflection. I slumped onto the sofa, sanity slipping through my fingers like sand. I remembered fragments, buying the second lock of hair at an extension store, programming automatic messages to her number, photographing her during her sessions with a hidden camera I installed myself. What do you want from me? I moaned. Sophia, or whoever she really was, smiled with genuine warmth. The same thing you wanted from me, to be seen, to be understood, to be needed. She leaned forward. The difference is that I admit it. The rain pounded on the windows, like applause. Milo purred between us, oblivious to the collapse of my reality. Ready for the session, Alexander? She asked softly. This time, I'm leading. And this time, be honest. When did you stop being my therapist and start needing to be my obsession? I had no answer. Only the echo of my own words on her lips, the reflection of my face in her eyes, and the terrible certainty that she was right. Maybe I always had her. Maybe the horror wasn't being stalked. It was discovering that it had been me, all along, chasing my own reflection in the eyes of a woman who only existed because I needed her to exist. And now, kneeling before her in my own living room, with my own notes revealing truths I had written and forgotten, I understood. There is no greater terror than losing the certainty of who you were, or worse, discovering that you always knew. The first message arrived on a Tuesday night, after I published my investigation into municipal corruption. Your article on Councilman Martinez was brilliant. Finally, someone with the courage to tell the truth. I admire your bravery, Laura Mendoza. I deleted it without a second thought. In 5 years as an investigative reporter for the Tribune, I had received hundreds of similar messages. Some were genuine, others not so much. My name appeared in the newspaper's contact section. Anyone could write to me. The second one arrived 3 days later. Your work is important. There are few people like you in this world. Take care of yourself. There are dangerous people who don't want you to keep writing. I filed it away with the first one. Slightly unsettling, but nothing out of the ordinary. Councilman Martinez had threatened to sue the newspaper. Perhaps it was a concerned informant. The third one arrived on Sunday at 11:47 p.m. Don't take the subway tomorrow morning, please, Laura, trust me. I stared at the phone screen in the darkness of my apartment. The number was private, like the previous ones. Something in the tone made my skin crawl. Too specific, too personal. But on Monday, I took the subway anyway. Blue Line, as usual, 7:15 a.m. to downtown. I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't going to let an anonymous message dictate my routine. I sat in my usual seat near the third door, checking emails on my phone. The explosion occurred at Central Station. It wasn't huge, but it was enough to derail 2 cars. Not mine. I was 3 cars back, 20 people injured, 3 dead. I spent 4 hours giving statements to the police, shaking, covered in gray dust. That night, another message. Thank goodness you weren't in the first cars. I'm relieved to know you're okay. I warned you. Next time, please listen to me. I called the police. They showed moderate interest. It could be someone with inside information about the attack, said Detective Ramos. Or just a coincidence. Have you received any direct threats? I shook my head. They took down the number and promised to investigate. Nothing came of it. For 2 weeks, silence. I tried to carry on as normal. I wrote about the attack, interviewed victims, pursued the theory of a local terrorist cell. My editor, Marcus, noticed my nervousness. You're more paranoid than usual, Mendoza. Everything okay? I lied and said yes. The next message arrived on a Thursday at 2:33 a.m. I was awakened by the buzzing of my phone. Don't go to the interview with Senator Blackwood tomorrow. He's not who he says he is. Real danger. Please, Laura, cancel. I had an interview scheduled with Blackwood for a political profile at 10 a.m. It was important for my career. I had waited 3 months for that slot in his schedule. I wasn't going to cancel because of messages from a madman. I went. His office was an entire floor in a skyscraper in the financial district, all glass and steel. The receptionist made me wait 20 minutes. Blackwood appeared with a professional politician's smile and shook my hand too firmly. 5 minutes into the interview, the fire alarm went off. It wasn't a drill. The fire started on the 18th floor, 2 floors below us. The smoke rose quickly, black and thick, filling the hallways. Panic was immediate. People were running, screaming. Blackwood and his team disappeared in different directions. I was left alone in the hallway, disoriented, the smoke burning my lungs. Then he appeared. I couldn't see his face, just his silhouette through the smoke, a male figure of average build. He took my arm firmly. This way, he said in a soft, almost gentle voice. I know another way out. He led me down a side hallway I hadn't noticed, down 3 flights of service stairs, and out into a back alley. Fresh air. Freedom. I turned to thank him. He was gone. The alley was empty except for trash cans and a rat that disappeared into the shadows. The message arrived while the firefighters were still battling the flames. Good thing I got you out in time. The smoke on those upper floors is lethal. I can't let anything bad happen to you, Laura. You're too important. Your work is important. I protect you. My blood ran cold. The words, I got you out, echoed in my mind like an alarm bell. He had been there, in the building, the silhouette in the smoke. I ran to the nearest police station, still smelling of ash on my clothes. Detective Ramos listened to me with an increasingly serious expression. 2 incidents where he specifically warns you. The subway, the fire, and he says he got you out of the building. He drummed his fingers on the desk. Miss Mendoza, do you have any enemies? Anyone who might want to hurt you? I'm an investigative journalist, I replied. I have a list. They traced the number. Disposable phone, impossible to trace. They assigned me police protection for a week. A patrol car passed by my apartment every 2 hours. I installed new locks, security cameras on the door. I stopped sleeping well, Every shadow on the street was a potential threat. The messages continued, but their tone changed. I know you're afraid. You shouldn't be. I would never hurt you. Everything I do is for your own good. You're special, Laura. Ever since I read your first article 3 years ago about homeless veterans, I knew you were different. Pure, brave, someone worthy of protection. 3 years. He had been following me for 3 years. Marcus insisted that I take a vacation. I refused. Work was the only thing that kept my sanity intact. I continued researching, writing, interviewing. But I changed all my routines, different routes to work, random schedules, never the same coffee 2 days in a row. I became unpredictable, or so I thought. The message arrived on a Tuesday. You need to eat better, Laura. I've seen you buying junk food at the Main Street Market. It's not healthy. Your body is a temple. You deserve the best. I had bought a sandwich there the day before. At 11 p.m., an impulsive decision, unplanned. How did he know? Was he following me around every day? The idea turned my stomach. I threw up in the newsroom bathroom, my hands shaking against the cold sink. That night, as I walked home, a new route along well-lit streets, I felt the gaze, that primitive feeling of being watched. I turned around abruptly. The street was full of people, couples walking, students in groups, a man with a dog. No one was looking directly at me, but the feeling didn't go away. I started documenting everything, every message, every incident, every moment where I felt his invisible presence. I filled 3 notebooks in 2 weeks. Ramos reviewed my notes with growing concern. This is aggravated harassment, Miss Mendoza. But without identifying the suspect, our hands are tied. The next incident was different. I was investigating a real estate fraud case. I had arranged to meet with an informant, Daniel Herrera, in an empty parking lot in the suburbs. It was an isolated place, a bad idea, but he insisted. I needed documents that would expose a network of speculators. The message arrived 3 hours before. Don't go alone to meet Herrera. It's a trap. I'll bring people with you, or don't go. Please, Laura. I can't protect you if you don't listen to me. How did he know about Herrera? I had never mentioned that meeting to anyone except Marcus. Was my phone being tapped? My emails? I called Ramos. He advised me to cancel. For the first time, I considered listening to the stalker, but I went, with precautions. I arrived 2 hours early and parked where I could see the meeting point from a distance. 7 p.m., the agreed time. Herrera's car arrived on time, a gray sedan. He parked and turned off the engine. He waited. 10 minutes later, another car appeared. A black SUV with tinted windows. It parked next to Herrera's sedan. 2 men got out, burly, with precise movements. One opened the sedan's driver's door. Herrera got out with his hands up. It wasn't a document delivery. It was a hit. I watched everything from my car, paralyzed. The men talked to Herrera, gesturing aggressively. Then one took something out of his pocket. A gun, the unmistakable metallic glint under the parking lot lights. My phone vibrated. Get out of there, now. Back up slowly, without lights, and leave. I'll call the police for you. I obeyed. I backed up, my heart pounding in my chest, praying they wouldn't see me. I left the parking lot, drove 3 blocks, and parked next to a gas station. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold the steering wheel. 5 minutes later, sirens. Patrol cars flooded the parking lot. Later, I found out Herrera survived, wounded but alive. The 2 men arrested, connection to the real estate fraud ring. And an anonymous call had alerted the police just in time. He had saved me. Again. The message that night was longer. I know you're confused, scared. I understand. But I need you to understand. I would never hurt you. Everything I do is because I love you, Laura. A pure love that transcends the physical. I am your guardian angel. Without me, you would already be dead. The subway, the fire, the parking lot, I've saved you 3 times. When will you accept that I need you as much as you need me?" I read the message over and over until the words lost their meaning. 3 saves, 3 warnings fulfilled. How could he know everything with such precision? A possibility began to form in my mind, dark and grotesque. What if he wasn't just predicting the dangers? What if he was causing them? I shared my theory with Ramos. He frowned. "Are you suggesting he caused the subway bombing and the fire in the Blackwood building?" I said it out loud for the first time. What better way to prove his protection than by saving me from dangers he himself creates? Ramos considered it. It's twisted, but possible. Hero syndrome. Some arsonist firefighters do exactly that. They start fires so they can be the first to put them out and gain recognition. We began investigating connections. The subway bombing had never been completely solved. The fire in the Blackwood building was classified as an electrical failure, but the exact cause was still in dispute. The Herrera case. How did my stalker know about the trap? What if he had organized it himself with the criminals? I spent 2 weeks in a state of constant paranoia bordering on insanity. I slept 3 hours a night, always with the lights on. I lost 4 pounds. Marcus threatened to put me on forced leave. "You're destroying yourself, Laura. This guy is beating you." He was right. The horror wasn't just that he was harassing me. It was that he was making me dependent on him. Every warning that turned out to be true, every rescue, wove an invisible bond. Part of me, the part I was terrified to acknowledge, was beginning to feel gratitude. No, something worse, relief. When the messages came, it meant I was safe because he was watching over me. I was becoming his psychological prisoner. The breaking point came in November. I'd been working on an investigation into arms trafficking, dangerous sources, connections to organized crime. Marcus wanted me to drop the story, too risky. I refused. It was my best piece of the year. The message came on a Sunday. "I know you're not going to listen to me. You're stubborn. It's something I love about you. But this time it's different, Laura. This investigation will kill you. The people involved have no scruples. Drop it, please. I can't protect you from everything." For the first time, he sounded desperate, scared, and that scared me more than any threat. I ignored the warning. I had an interview scheduled with a former member of the organization willing to talk in exchange for protection. We would meet at a discreet hotel downtown. Security hired. Ramos and 2 other agents as backup in the lobby. The night before, another message. "Last warning, Laura. Don't go. Or if you do, take protection beyond the police. They're not enough. I am enough. Let me protect you. Let me be close. Please." I blocked him. I changed my number. I took every reasonable precaution. On the day of the meeting, I arrived at the hotel at 3 p.m. Ramos and his team were already in position. My informant, Vega, not his real name, would arrive at 4 p.m. I went up to room 812 and checked every corner, every window, all clear. 3:47 p.m. My phone, the new one I had just bought, vibrated. "Unknown number. I found you. I will always find you. You can't run away from me, Laura. And today I'll prove it. Vega won't be coming. There's a bomb in the hotel lobby. It will explode at 4:05 p.m. Evacuate immediately. You have 18 minutes. Go to the north fire escape. I'll be waiting to get you out. Trust me, it's your only option." Panic paralyzed me. Was it real? Or was it a final manipulation to force me to meet him face to face? I called Ramos. He didn't answer. I ran down the main stairs to the lobby. The lobby was full of people, tourists, hotel staff, Ramos's agents chatting by the reception desk. Everything was normal. No alarm, no visible danger. I approached Ramos. "We have to evacuate." He says there's a bomb. He looked at me with concern but called on his radio. The bomb squad would arrive in 12 minutes. My phone. 10 minutes. "Leave now, Laura. They're wasting time. The bomb is in the basement next to the main electrical system. The fire will spread quickly. North staircase, now." Ramos ordered a discreet evacuation. Too slow. People moved, but without urgency, thinking it was a drill. 4:02 p.m., 3 minutes. The rumble came from below, a low roar that shook the floor. The lights flickered. Then smoke began to pour out of the ventilation grates, black and acrid. Panic broke out instantly. People were running, screaming, pushing toward the main exits. Ramos pushed me toward the east staircase. "Let's go." But the crowd separated us. I was swept toward the north staircase, exactly where he had said, by the human tide. I went up instead of down. Pure instinct, away from the fire. 5th floor, 6th, 7th. The smoke followed me, creeping up the stairwell like a living creature. My lungs burned, my eyes watered. I couldn't see. Then a hand on my arm, firm, familiar. "I've got you," said the soft voice. The same one from the fire at the Blackwood building. "Come with me." She guided me, pushed me really, toward a door leading to the 7th floor. An empty hallway. She led me to a room at the end. The door was open. Inside, she let go of me. I turned around, finally ready to see her face. He was normal. Completely normal. 30-something, short brown hair, green eyes, average build. He could have been anyone. An accountant, a teacher, someone you pass on the street without remembering. He was wearing jeans and a gray sweatshirt. He was smiling. "Hello, Laura. We finally meet properly." His voice was warm, almost shy, as if we were old friends meeting for coffee. "You," I whispered, backing up until my back hit the wall. "You planted the bomb." His smile faltered. "I had to do it. You weren't listening to me. You were going to meet Vega, and he would have handed you over to the organization. It was a real trap this time, Laura. I just accelerated the inevitable to save you before it was too late." "This time," I repeated, nausea rising in my throat. "How many times has it been real, and how many times did you cause it?" He took a step closer. I took another step back. He stopped, his hands up in a conciliatory gesture. The subway was necessary. "You didn't know me yet. I needed a way to introduce myself, to prove I could protect you. I only put in a small explosive, enough to scare but not to kill. I made sure your car was far from the explosion." My mind fragmented. 3 people died in that attack. You killed innocent people. "Unfortunate collateral damage," he said with chilling matter-of-factness, as if he were talking about the weather. "But you lived. That's what matters. The fire at Blackwood was cleaner. I timed it for a floor where I knew there were few people. And I got you out before the smoke became lethal." "What about Herrera?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Those thugs were real, hired by the fraud network. But I gave them your location and the time. Then I warned you and called the police. Win-win. You safe, criminals arrested, and you a little more dependent on me." He smiled as if expecting approval. "You're sick," I spat. His expression hardened. "I'm in love. There's a difference. Do you know how long I've spent getting to know you? 3 years, Laura. I've read every article you've ever written. I know your favorite coffee, latte with oat milk, no sugar. I know you listen to jazz when you write, that you call your mother every Sunday, that you have a scar on your left knee from falling off your bike when you were 8. He slowly unzipped his sweatshirt, revealing a white t-shirt underneath. Then he took off his t-shirt. His torso was covered in tattoos, but one dominated. My full name, Laura Isabel Mendoza, in elaborate Gothic letters over his heart, surrounded by red hearts intertwined with thorns. Below, dates. The day my first article was published, the day of the subway bombing, the day of the fire, the day of the incident with Herrera, and a future date, today, with the words, "Our beginning" underneath. I did it gradually, he explained, caressing the tattoo reverently. Every time I saved you, I added a heart. Now I have 11. 11 times I've intervened in your life. Some you remember, others were more subtle. The car that almost ran you over 2 months ago, I braked just in time. The food poisoning you almost got at that Thai restaurant, I changed your order. I'm always there, Laura, always. Sirens blared outside, Firefighters arriving. Smoke seeped under the door. He didn't even seem to notice. And now, he continued moving closer again. You finally see me. You know me. I'm no longer invisible. We can be together properly. I will always protect you. I will always love you. You just have to accept it. You're crazy, I said, looking around for something I could use as a weapon. A lamp, the phone, anything. I'm devoted, he corrected me. And so are you, whether you admit it or not. How many times did you read my messages for comfort? How many nights did you sleep more peacefully knowing that I was watching over you? I've made you addicted to my protection, Laura. Now you need me as much as I need you. The door burst open. Ramos and 3 agents stormed in, guns drawn. Hands up. Get down on the floor. My stalker, I didn't even know his name, looked at me with infinite sadness. Don't be afraid, he whispered. I'll come back for you. I always come back. Then slowly, he knelt down, his hands behind his head. The officers handcuffed him brutally. They dragged him to the door. At the last second before disappearing, he turned. I love you, Laura, and I know that one day you will love me too, because no one else will protect you like I do. No one else knows you like I do. I am your destiny. The door closed behind him. Ramos helped me out of the building. Complete evacuation. The fire contained, but the building declared unsafe. 11 people hospitalized for smoke inhalation. This time, no deaths. A small mercy, Ramos murmured. In the ambulance, while they checked my vital signs, Ramos informed me. His name is David Torres, systems technician for a telecommunications company. He had access to network infrastructure throughout the city. That's why he could intercept your communications, track your location, know your movements. We found his apartment. Laura, you have to prepare yourself. They took me there, later. I insisted on seeing it. I needed to understand. David Torres' apartment was a shrine dedicated to me. The walls were covered with photos. Me walking, working in cafes, sleeping in my apartment. He had installed cameras without my knowledge. A giant corkboard with red lines connecting every article I had written with potential threats. Detailed lists of my routines, audio recordings of my phone calls, and in the center of it all, an altar with my first published column framed, surrounded by votive candles, as if I were a saint. But the worst was on his computer. Ramos showed me the files, his face pale. Detailed plans for each rescue. The subway attack, purchase of explosives, exact location of the bomb, diagram of the train cars, marking mine in green, safe, and the first 3 in red, expendable. The Blackwood fire, electrical diagrams, ignition point, evacuation routes, all calculated down to the millimeter. The incident with Herrera, encrypted messages to the criminals, coordination of times, timed call to the police to arrive just after saving me. And today's incident, the hotel, messages to Vega, who had never planned to betray me until Torres manipulated him with false information, purchase of materials for the bomb. And the most chilling, a document titled Final Rescue, Face-to-Face Encounter Protocol. He had planned everything, every second, every word he had said to me. He had even calculated the exact time it would take the police to reach the 7th floor to dramatically interrupt us, making sure I saw him as an unjustly arrested victim while protecting me. He's been orchestrating your life for 3 years, Ramos said quietly, turning the world into a dangerous place so he could be your savior. It's one of the most extreme cases of hero syndrome I've ever seen. I sat on the floor of Torres' apartment, surrounded by photos of myself, and something inside me broke. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at my own face, replicated hundreds of times on the walls, and wondered how much of my life in the last 3 years had really been mine. How many decisions had been genuine, and how many manipulated by him, pushing me where he wanted, creating crises so he could solve them. The trial was quick. David Torres pleaded guilty to aggravated harassment, multiple counts of attempted murder for the subway attack, arson, and domestic terrorism. 50 years without the possibility of parole. During his final statement, he looked directly at me. "I did it for love," he said in a firm voice without remorse. "Laura, someday you'll understand that it was all for love. I gave you purpose. I made you feel important, protected, special. Without me, you're just another journalist in a city full of them. With me, you were extraordinary. You were mine." They took him out of the room as he continued to speak, his voice echoing down the hallway. "I love you, Laura. I will always love you. I'll be back for you." 6 months have passed. Torres is in a maximum security prison 400 kilometers from here. I've tried to rebuild my life. New house, new routine, therapy 3 times a week. Marcus has been patient with me, letting me write lighter pieces while I regain my balance. But sometimes at night, when the apartment is too quiet, I hear every noise and think, is it real or did he cause it? Every traffic warning on the radio, every accident report, every moment of potential danger makes me instinctively reach for my phone, hoping for a message from him. And that's the scariest part. He made me addicted to his vigilance, accustomed to someone, something, constantly watching me, anticipating danger, protecting me. Now, without him, the world feels more dangerous, not less. As if the illusion of security he built was more comforting than the real uncertainty of freedom. Yesterday, I received a letter from the prison, handwritten on gray institutional paper. "Dear Laura, I know you still think of me. I feel it in my heart, in the tattoo of your name. The 11 hearts beat every night, remembering you. I hope you are well. I hope you continue writing. Your last article on judicial reform was brilliant. It made me proud. Be patient. 50 years is a long time, but true love waits. And when I get out, and I will get out because fate wants us together, we'll pick up where we left off. Me protecting, you being perfect, together forever. Until then, take care. And remember, even though I can't be there physically, my love surrounds you like an invisible shield. You will always be safe in my heart. Yours forever, David." I burned the letter. I reported the violation of the no contact order. They increased his surveillance in prison. But 2 nights later, while I was sleeping, I dreamed about the subway, about the explosion, about the silhouette in the smoke, and in the dream, a part of me, small, twisted but undeniable, felt relieved that someone was watching. I woke up crying, hating myself, because David Torres was right about one thing. He had changed me. He hadn't just harassed me. He had rebuilt me. And now, even with him locked up, a part of me will always bear his mark, like that tattoo over his heart, except mine is invisible, engraved on my psyche. I am free, legally, physically, but emotionally, a part of me will remain his prisoner forever. That is the true nature of his horror. He didn't just stalk me. He turned me into someone who, in the darkest corners of her mind, misses being stalked. And when I look out the window of my new apartment onto the nighttime street, when I see shadows moving between parked cars, a little voice whispers, "What if it's him? What if he found a way out? What if he's back to protect you?" And worst of all, I don't know if that voice speaks with fear or with hope. That's what David Torres really stole from me. Not my safety, my autonomy, my ability to trust my own judgment about what I should feel. The horror doesn't end with his arrest. It's just beginning. Because now, and perhaps forever, I will carry his surveillance with me. Internalized, perpetual. A cage he built inside my mind that he will never find the key to open. In my nightmares, I see him smiling, touching the tattoo over his heart, whispering, "I love you, Laura. And someday, you'll love me too." And the scariest part is that I'm no longer completely sure he's wrong. My name is Emily. I'm 19 years old, and I live in a fucking suburban hellhole on the outskirts of Chicago, Illinois. My house is one of those two-story shacks with a front yard that looks like it came out of a shitty 1950s postcard, but inside it smells like despair and reheated dinners. My dad, Tom, is a truck mechanic who works 12-hour shifts at a factory south of the city, and my mom, Sarah, is a secretary at an insurance office where she spends her days pretending to care about people she hates. We're a normal shitty family, or so I thought until all this hell started. It all started one night in late September, when the wind from Lake Michigan was whipping against the windows as if it wanted to come in and ruin my life. I was in my second-floor bedroom, lying on my bed with my laptop open, scrolling through Instagram like an idiot, looking for distractions from the community college that was eating me alive. I was studying nursing at the College of DuPage, a dump full of lost teenagers and single mothers pretending to have a future. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. I thought it was my friend Lisa sending me a stupid meme, but the number was unknown. The message read, "I saw you today on campus, wearing that short skirt that rides up your legs like a fucking invitation. I love the way you walk, like you know I'm watching you." My heart skipped a beat. What the hell? I deleted the message and blocked the number, laughing nervously to myself. It was probably some jerk from anatomy class who had seen me in the hallway. I went to bed, but sleep didn't come. I stared at the ceiling, feeling a tingling sensation on the back of my neck, as if someone were breathing down my neck. The next day, in the campus cafeteria, I got another one. "That coffee you drank today. I wish I could lick it off your lips. Wear something red tomorrow. I'll be waiting for you." Damn, this was no joke. My stomach churned as I walked to microbiology class, looking over my shoulder every 2 seconds. Chicago is a big city, but the campus was a fucking maze of gray buildings and anonymous students. Who the hell was this guy? I tried to ignore him, but the messages kept coming, one after another like poison dripping into my brain. I imagine you in the shower, water running down your tits. Do you touch yourself thinking of me? Or this one? I saw you laughing with that guy in the library. If you do it again, you'll regret it. You're mine, Emily. He knew my name. That made it real. Fucking real. I started changing my routine, leaving class through back doors, taking different routes to the bus, even stopping wearing the red skirt I liked. But the bastard was persistent. One night, while riding home on the CTA train, my phone vibrated again. A photo. Me, sitting on the park bench near my house, reading a book last week. The angle was from above, as if the son of a bitch was in a tree or a passing car. Nice book. Next time, read it to me naked. I cried that night in my room, with the door locked and the light on. I told Lisa the next day, at a shitty coffee shop in Wheaton. She gave me that poor thing look and told me to go to campus police. It's harassment, Em. Don't be silly. But the idea of going to an office full of old bureaucrats who would look at me like I was the one at fault turned my stomach. What if it was someone there, a professor, a student who hated me for some shitty reason? I decided to handle it myself. I blocked numbers, changed my password for everything, even started carrying pepper spray in my bag. But the harassment didn't stop. It escalated, like a fucking avalanche. The messages became dirtier, more invasive. "I dream of tying you to the bed and fucking you until you scream my name. Your parents wouldn't hear a thing, you know. They're too busy with their shitty lives." How did he know about my parents? I started obsessing, checking my social media, deleting photos, making my profile private. Once, I found an envelope in the mailbox at home, a handwritten note on cheap paper that said, "I can smell you in the wind, Emily. Your pussy tastes like honey. Soon I'll taste it." Inside was a lock of blonde hair, like mine, but it wasn't mine. I threw up in the bathroom, my knees shaking. The tension was killing me. I slept with a knife under my pillow, jumping at every noise in the house. My father noticed I was acting strange, but he chalked it up to stress from college, sweetheart. Eat something. You look like a ghost. My mother patted me on the back and went on with her frozen lasagna recipe. I didn't tell them anything. What for? They were adults living in their bubble of beer and football on Sundays. But the fear seeped into everything, into my classes, where I sat at the back and didn't look up, into the supermarket, where I felt eyes piercing my back, into my dreams, where a faceless shadow dragged me into a dark alleyway in the streets of Chicago, laughing as it tore my clothes. Weeks passed. October brought the cold, and with it, a new level of perversion. The messages now came with audio clips, a distorted, deep, panting voice whispering, "Imagine my cock inside you, Emily. Hard, thick, breaking you. You scream, but you love it. You slut." I heard one in the campus bathroom and almost fainted. I had to sit on the dirty floor, hyperventilating, as hot tears ran down my face. Who was this monster? Why me? I wasn't special. Straight brown hair, ordinary green eyes, normal body of a girl who eats ramen 3 times a week. But he made me feel like prey, like a piece of meat on display at the Southside Market. I began to suspect everyone. The guy on the bus who stared at me too much. The old neighbor who watered his lawn when I was outside. Even the chemistry teacher, a bald 50-year-old with sunken eyes who always asked me to stay after class to review notes. One night, home alone because my parents had gone to a crappy movie downtown, I got a call. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. "Emily. Oh, Emily. I saw you last night through the window. Naked, drying your hair, your nipples hard from the cold. Tomorrow, at dinner with your family. I'll be there. And you'll be mine." My blood ran cold. Dinner with the family? My parents had mentioned something about inviting an old friend of Dad's, Bill. Bill Hargrove, a retired builder who had grown up with my father in the working-class neighborhoods of Bridgeport. I'd seen him a couple of times at family barbecues. A big guy in his 60s with a beer belly, short gray hair, and a laugh that boomed like thunder. He always patted me on the back too hard, calling me Tom's little princess, with a smile that didn't reach his blue eyes, cold as knife steel. Was it him? No, it couldn't be. Bill was like a harmless fake uncle. But panic set in. I checked my phone. The number was local, Chicago area. It could be anyone. The night of the dinner arrived like a storm. It was a Friday. The air smelled of rotten leaves and chimney smoke. My mother had cooked a roast that stank of burnt onions, and the dining room table was set with the good dishes we only took out for Christmas. I'd put on a loose sweater and jeans, nothing that would invite attention, but I could feel sweat sticking my clothes to my skin. Dad opened a beer for Bill when he arrived, and the two of them started talking about the Cubs and how the city was going to hell with immigrants and corrupt politicians. Bill looked at me from the couch, his eyes running over me like invisible fingers. "Emily, look how big you are, girl. You look like one of those models in those shitty magazines they sell at the gas station." His laugh was guttural, and I forced a smile, feeling nauseous. Dinner was a slow hell. Sitting across from him, my fork trembling in my hand, I noticed his feet brushing against mine under the table. At first, I thought it was accidental, but then he did it again, pressing his boot against my ankle, slowly moving up my calf. "Pass me the salt, princess," he said, his voice normal. But his eyes fixed on me like nails. My mother chatted about her work, oblivious to everything, and Dad nodded, drinking his third beer. I wanted to scream, but the words stuck in my throat. After dessert, a bland apple pie, my parents announced they were going to the garage to watch a game on Dad's old TV. "Bill, stick around for a while. Emily, wash the dishes, will you? We won't be long." And just like that, we were alone. The dining room felt like a tomb, the ticking of the clock on the wall amplified to the point of pain. Bill got up slowly, like a predator who knows his prey can't run. He approached me from behind as I rinsed a plate in the sink in the adjoining kitchen. His breath smelled of whiskey and stale tobacco. "You've been ignoring me, Emily," he murmured, his voice low and hoarse. His hands rested on my hips, heavy, pinning me against the counter. "All those messages, you read them, didn't you? They turned you on, you slut." The plate slipped from my hands and crashed into the sink, shattering into 1,000 sharp pieces. I screamed, but he covered my mouth with one calloused hand, the other sliding down my stomach, slipping under my sweater. "Shh, little princess. Your parents are next door. If you make a noise, they'll find out what a whore you are." His erection pressed against my back, hard and disgusting, while his fingers scratched my skin, moving down to the button of my jeans. I fought back, kicking, digging my nails into his arm, but it was like fighting against a wall of flesh. He turned me around brutally, pushing me against the counter, his face inches from mine. Deep wrinkles, bloodshot eyes, lips curled in a sadistic smile. "I knew it was you from the first day I saw you grow up, Emily. At those barbecues, with your skinny little legs. Now you're a female ready to hunt." Then he kissed me. Not a kiss. An assault. Invasive tongue, teeth biting my lip until it bled. I screamed into his mouth, but he laughed, drowning out the sound. His hands ripped my sweater, exposing my bra, and he pulled it down in one swift motion, pinching my nipples viciously. "Look at you, perfect tits. I've dreamed of biting them until you cry." He lifted me onto the countertop, the cold marble against my bare back, and wrestled with my jeans, pulling them down along with my underwear to my ankles. I was exposed, vulnerable, the kitchen air licking my skin like an accomplice. "No, please, Bill, stop," I sobbed, tears burning my cheeks. But he spat on his hand and unbuttoned his pants, pulling out his cock, pointing it at me like a weapon. "This is what you wanted, right? All those messages got your pussy wet." He penetrated me with a brutal, merciless thrust, breaking me inside. I screamed at the pain like fire, but he covered my mouth again, ramming into me with animal fury, his sweaty belly crushing me against the counter. Each thrust was a growl, an insult. "Whore. Mine. Take my cock, Emily." The world was reduced to that. His crushing weight, the slap of flesh against flesh, the stench of his sweat mixing with my blood and tears. I tried to scratch his face, but he caught my wrists, pinning them above my head. "Fight. Yes, that makes me harder. You're a fighter, little princess." It lasted an eternity, or perhaps minutes that stretched like rubber. I felt his cock throb inside me, and then the hot, sticky stream filling me as he moaned like a pig. He pulled out, panting, and left me there, a mess, legs shaking, blood dripping down my thighs, bruises forming on my hips. He pulled up his pants, adjusted his belt calmly, as if he had just finished a cigarette. He leaned over, his breath in my ear. "If you tell your parents, they won't believe you. I've been Tom's best friend since we were kids. He knows I drink, but he doesn't know I fuck little sluts like you. They'll say you made it up, that you're crazy from stress, and I'll keep coming. Every dinner, every visit. You're mine now." He straightened up, ran a hand through his gray hair, and walked out to the garage as if nothing had happened, joining my parents' laughter at a touchdown. I stood there, naked from the waist down, sobbing silently as the tap water continued to run over the pieces of broken plate. I dressed with trembling hands, cleaned up the mess with paper towels that reeked of bleach, and sat at the table pretending to read a book when they came in. "Good game," Dad said, patting Bill on the back. My mother looked at me. "Are you okay, honey? You look pale." I nodded, swallowing bile. "Just tired." That night, in my bed, with the knife under my pillow, I couldn't sleep. The pain between my legs was a constant stinging, dirty reminder. I thought about telling them everything, running into my parents' room, spilling out the tears and the words. But his voice echoed in my head. "They won't believe you." Dad idolized Bill, the guy who had lent him money when he lost his job in the 90s, the one who covered for him when he was drunk. Mom saw him as family. Who would believe me, the troubled daughter, who had been acting weird lately? The police. Fuck. With what evidence? Some deleted messages, bruises I could explain away as a fall. And he would deny it, laughing, saying I was a liar, a whore who provoked him. I don't know what to do. Tomorrow is Saturday, and Bill might come back for coffee. I look at the ceiling, the wind howling outside, and I feel his shadow in every corner. The anonymous harassment turned into this, a real sticky violation that marks me inside. I want to run away, take the train anywhere, New York, Los Angeles, anywhere. But I have no money, nowhere to go. Lisa. Maybe I'll tell Lisa. Or not. Fear paralyzes me, a knot in my stomach that won't go away. What if he's right? What if no one believes me? I'm trapped in this shitty house, in this city of concrete and secrets, waiting for the next move from the monster hiding in plain sight. Days pass in a blur of nightmares. I try to normalize it. I go to class, I smile falsely, but every vibration of my phone makes me jump. A new message from a blocked number. I dreamed about you again last night. We'll do it again soon. It's him. Always him. On campus, I see big men and hide in the bathrooms, hyperventilating. One night, alone in the house again, my parents are at a charity dinner. I hear a noise at the back door. I run to my room, key in the lock, phone in hand, calling 911, but I hang up before they answer. What do I tell them? A friend of my dad's raped me and now he's stalking me. It sounds ridiculous, unbelievable. The tension grows like an infected wound. In class, a boy brushes my arm and I scream, drawing stares. The teacher sends me to the counselor, a middle-aged woman with glasses who smells of cheap perfume. I tell her about the anonymous harassment, leaving out the part about Bill. You must report it, she says, but her eyes say, you're probably exaggerating. I leave feeling even dirtier. At home, Dad mentions, Bill asked about you. He says you seem depressed, that you should get out more. I want to puke in his beer. Another step in the perversion. A package arrives in the mailbox, no return address. Inside, my panties, the ones I wore that night, stained and folded with a note. Save the smell for me. Next time, I'll rip them off with my teeth. How he got them, I don't know. Did he come in while I was asleep? Did he follow me to the laundry room? Suspicion suffocates me. Every shadow on the stairs, every creak in the basement is him. I imagine his face on top of me in the dark, his fat hands exploring, his muffled laughter against my neck. I try to confront him. One afternoon when he stops by the house to see Tom, I corner him on the porch. Leave me alone, Bill. I know it's you. His smile is a knife. Princess, what are you talking about? You're paranoid. If you tell anyone, I'll make up worse things about you. That you flirt, that you send naked pictures. Your dad will believe me. He leaves, and I sink to the floor sobbing. Family Thanksgiving dinner is coming up, and I know he'll be there. The panic is constant, a buzzing in my ears. I make a plan. I'll tell Mom first, alone. But when I try, she sighs. Emily, you're stressed. Bill is family. I don't believe her. She doesn't believe me. Night comes. The table full of turkey and lies. Under the table, his foot again, climbing up. This time, I don't fight. I freeze, dissociating, floating above my body as they chat about football. Later, in the kitchen, alone again. Good girl, he whispers, closing the door. He pushes me against the refrigerator, his hands everywhere. I've missed you. He rapes me right there, fast and wild, biting my shoulder to silence my moans of pain. He finishes, wipes himself on my sweater, and leaves whistling. Now, in my room, I write this as a dead woman's diary. I don't know what to do. The city outside is a maze of cold streets, but he knows every shortcut. The anonymous harassment was the prelude. This is hell. If I tell, I lose everything. If I don't, I lose myself. The knife glints in the moonlight, tempting, but I don't have the courage. Not yet. The first message arrived like a whisper in the dark. A digital intruder that slipped into my phone just when I was beginning to believe that independence was real. I had moved into that cabin on the outskirts of Asheville only 2 days earlier, fleeing the hustle and bustle of the city that was suffocating me. The house was a precarious refuge. Creaky wood underfoot, windows overlooking the thick forest like a living wall, and a silence that lulled me at first, but soon became oppressive. I was alone for the first time in years, unpacking books with my hands still dusty from the trip, when the device on the kitchen table vibrated. Unknown number. I love how focused you look when you read. The light from the lamp makes your hair shine. The air thickened. I stood still, the book falling from my hands with a dull thud. I ran to the front window, pulling back the threadbare curtain with a trembling finger. Outside, the night was a black veil dotted with indifferent stars. The trees swayed like sleepy sentinels, but there was no movement, no silhouettes, just the wind scratching at the branches. "Wrong number," I muttered, my voice a broken thread in the void. I deleted the message, but the knot in my stomach tightened like an invisible claw. I poured myself a glass of water, with hands that no longer obeyed me completely, and forced myself to laugh. Silly paranoia. It's just spam. It wasn't. The next day, as I made coffee in the kitchen, the sun filtering lazily through the back window, another buzz. "The blue sweater looks perfect on you. Better than yesterday's gray one. Did you pick it out for me?" The coffee spilled, burning my fingers. The blue sweater. I had worn it the night before, here inside, where no one could see me. Except the mailbox. I had stepped out onto the porch for a moment to collect the mail in the dim light of dusk. From the road, with binoculars, someone could have peered inside. I pulled all the curtains shut, my heart beating erratically against my ribs. I dialed the number, but all I heard was a dead phone tone. I blocked the contact. It's over, I told myself, but doubt was already taking root, a slow poison that made every shadow look like a watchful eye. The messages didn't stop, they mutated. They came at unpredictable times, always from new numbers, as if the stalker anticipated my defenses. One at noon, while I was eating a sandwich alone. "That book of poetry you're reading, is it about impossible loves? Like us?" How did he know what I was reading? I'd mentioned it in passing in a call to my friend that morning, but was he listening? The forest was dense, but not impenetrable. I changed my number that same afternoon, sweating in the village phone store, paranoid that a stranger in line was watching me. It lasted a week of deafening silence, a fragile relief that allowed me to sleep with the light off for the first time. Until he came back. Midnight. I was in bed, curled up under the sheets when the new phone vibrated on the nightstand. "I missed your voice. You sound so vulnerable when you talk to your mom. Tell her to take better care of you." The call to my mother had been that afternoon, a routine check-in from the porch. The forest whispered in the background. But what if it wasn't the wind? I sat up with a start, cold sweat sticking my hair to the back of my neck. I dialed 911, but hung up before they answered. What was I going to say? That a ghost is listening to me? Instead, I installed cameras that very night, my hands shaking as I screwed the brackets into the damp wood. Motion sensors, night vision, instant alerts. "Now I'll see who you are," I swore to the forest, but my voice was lost in the breeze, like a plea. The first few days, the cameras were silent allies. They captured rabbits running away, leaves dancing in the wind, the occasional car passing by on the highway. I slept a little better, the phone silent like a truce. But the tension grew subtly. I smelled disturbed earth near the back door, as if someone had stepped too close. I dismissed the idea as hysteria, until the first real alert. It was 1 a.m. The sharp beep jolted me from a shallow sleep, my heart already racing before I touched the screen. The northern camera, the one pointing at the thickest part of the forest, showed movement. A hooded figure, blurred in the infrared vision, glided between the logs like smoke. It stopped under my bedroom window, motionless, its head tilted upward, toward me. Then the scraping, a metallic sound against the wall, slow, deliberate, like fingernails on a coffin. Scrap. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't scream, I couldn't move. The figure crouched down, leaving something on the ground, a small lump, before melting into the darkness. At dawn, my stomach churning, I checked the porch. A rusty nail, half driven into the wood next to the window. It wasn't an attempted break-in. It was a marker. I was here, it said without words. I called the police that time, my voice a controlled tremor. 2 officers arrived in a squeaky patrol car, their boots leaving tracks in the mud. They examined the nail, nodded with furrowed brows. Could be an animal or vandals from the woods. We'll increase patrols. They left, and I was left with the emptiness of their disbelief. The nail still throbbing in my mind like someone else's pulse. The obsession escalated in waves, each more suffocating than the last. Messages now came with photos attached. One of my lit window from the woods, my blurred silhouette reading in bed. I see you dreaming. Do you dream about me? I replied once, an impulsive mistake. Leave me alone. The stalker replied instantly. But you don't even know me. Yet. I blocked him, but the damage was done. Now I knew he was reading it, that he was interacting. The nights became rituals of terror. I would go to bed with the bat under my pillow, my eyes fixed on the ceiling, counting the breaths of strangers in the wind. A week later, the doll. I found it at dawn on the doormat, a jumble of dark fabric sewn together with thick thread, black button eyes sunken like wells. The torso was split open, filled with something sticky that dripped red. Ketchup, I convinced myself, but the metallic smell betrayed me. The note pinned to its hand. A friend for lonely nights. Don't cry so much. Was I crying? Yes, silently. Tears soaking my pillow as I pretended to sleep. I burned it in the sink, the flames licking the fabric with a pungent stench, but the smoke seeped into my lungs. A permanent reminder. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed a suitcase that night, the forest roaring as if mocking me. I drove to the motel in town under a moon that looked like a blind eye. The rearview mirror empty but laden with shadows. 3 nights there, sleeping with the door barricaded with a chair, phone in hand. Every creak in the building was him, testing doors, whispering my name. I returned to the cabin because I had no choice. The motel was a gilded cage, and I needed my fortress. The locksmith came the next day, his new keys a fragile talisman. No one gets in without your permission, he said, but his eyes said otherwise. Hypervigilance became my second skin. I tiptoed through the house, turning off lights at random to surprise invisible intruders. I ate with my back against the wall, my fork as a makeshift weapon. One afternoon, while checking emails on my laptop, there was a sharp knock on the side window. I turned. My breath caught. A branch, just a branch. But when I looked out, I saw fresh footprints in the mud, bare feet too close to the wall, too human. The storm arrived like a verdict. Rain pelted the roof like bullets. Thunder rumbled in my chest. I was on the sofa, the TV volume low so as not to drown out any alerts, when the beep cut through the air. Rear camera. The grainy image showed the patio door, the eaves dripping. And there, the figure. Not hooded this time. A white mask, smooth, featureless. A blank canvas where a face should have been. Inhuman. It stood in the rain, motionless, as if waiting for permission. It dropped something. My blue sweater, soaked, smeared with something dark that spread like veins. I'd been looking for it for days. I thought I had washed it and misplaced it. The mask tilted, fixed on the lens, and I knew it was looking at me, that it could sense me. It approached the doorknob, turning it with agonizing slowness. The new lock squeaked but held. It took out the keyring then, several keys jingling like chains, trying one after another. Clink, scratch, clink. Each sound was a heartbeat in my temple, one step closer to the abyss. I grabbed the bat, dialed 911 with numb fingers. Someone's trying to get in. Now! The operator was calm, but I could see the screen. The figure tilting its head, as if listening to my voice through the wood. It raised a gloved hand touching the camera. The glass fogged up with their breath, the image turning to mist. A finger traced a crooked heart in the steam before disappearing into the storm. The police arrived with sirens tearing through the night. They checked the sweater, mud, not blood, Thank God. The scratch on the lock. The young officer, his eyes non-judgmental, insisted, "Any family nearby?" I nodded, but terror had already eroded my resolve. That night, I dreamed of the mask pressed against my window, breath fogging the glass as it whispered, "Let me in. I just want to see you up close." I never slept there again. I packed in the relentless rain, the forest a chorus of accusing whispers. I drove with my high beams on, paranoid about headlights in my rearview mirror. I called my parents from the highway, my voice broken. "I'm coming home. Don't ask." Their farm on the outskirts of my hometown was a balm. Open fields, lights always on, the smell of damp earth erasing the stench of the forest. I slept in my old room, the closet full of youthful ghosts, but for the first time in weeks, the sleep was deep, without masks. My parents didn't press me at first. Mom left bowls of soup at the door. Dad patrolled the porch with his rusty shotgun. I told them bits and pieces, the messages, the doll, the mask. Tears rolled down their cheeks. Dad cursed under his breath, promising, "You're safe here." I began the paperwork, breaking the lease, selling furniture from afar. My hometown enveloped me like a cocoon, and for a month, I believed in the illusion. Walks in the garden, books without interruptions, nights where the wind was just wind, until the envelope. Mom brought it on a sunny afternoon, her smile hesitant. "Mail for you." No return address, just my name in that slanted handwriting, familiar like a scar. I opened it in the kitchen, the knife trembling in my hand. Inside, the photo. Me on the deck chair in the back garden 2 days ago. Dad's t-shirt hanging loosely. A red circle around my head, fresh ink that smelled of metal. On the back, "Never go so far away. I found you again. I always will." The scream tore through the air, a primal sound that drew my parents running. I showed them the photo. Mom covered her mouth. Dad called the sheriff in a thunderous voice. This time, it was serious. Clues crossing county lines, feds involved. Agents came, took fingerprints, promised surveillance. But the damage was irreversible. Every window was an eye, every shadow, a gloved hand. I looked at the garden where I read, and saw not peace, but a trap set. A week later, the tension coiled back in. A message on my old phone, the one I had discarded but mistakenly left charging in the basement. "Your childhood bedroom is cute, that band poster. Do you still dance with him?" How did he know? The room faced the front. From the street, with patience, you could see inside. I changed the locks again, but my sleep was fragmented. I would wake up sweating, convinced I heard footsteps in the hallway. The climax came on a moonless night, the air heavy with ozone like a prelude to a storm. I was alone. My parents were at a village dinner, curled up on the sofa with my phone in my hand, when there was a knock on the back door. Not a punch, a soft scrape, like nails on wood. My heart stopped. The barn camera, newly installed, showed nothing at first, then movement. The white mask, emerging from the bushes like a specter. It was carrying something, my blue sweater, now threadbare, hanging from one hand like a trophy. It approached the door, testing the knob with hypnotic slowness. Clink. The key ring again. A key fit on the third try. The lock gave way a millimeter before the new security stopped it. The mask pressed against the glass, breath fogging it up, an invisible eye piercing me. I took out my phone, fingers fumbling with the 911 button, but the dead line's beep froze me. Interference. Him. He ran then, a white blur into the darkness, but left his sweater caught on the doorknob, a strand of my hair tied to it with red thread, stolen from my brush, fresh. The police arrived late. The sheriff cursed, promising raids, but I knew the truth. He didn't need to get in. He was already inside, in my veins, in my dreams. The Asheville woods were just the beginning. Now the whole world was his territory. Days later, another envelope. This time a photo of my parents sleeping in their bed, taken from the garden. The red circle around their joined heads. The note, "Your family's cute. Take care of them, or I will." I ran away again, but where to? The stalker wasn't a man, he was a plague. a whisper that clung to the skin. Every door was an illusion, every shadow an embrace. And at night, when the wind scratched at the windows, I heard his voice in the silence. "Come to me, or I'll find you again." The terror wasn't the mask, it was knowing it would never come off. At first, I attributed it to the detergent, a new fragrance perhaps. Alpine breeze, or wild lavender, some poetic name for a chemical cocktail designed to make clothes smell like something nature never conceived. But that wasn't it. It was an earthy, slightly sweet smell, with an aftertaste of dry male sweat and cheap cologne that clung to the fabric of my underwear like a dirty promise. I noticed it on a Tuesday. I put on my black cotton panties, the simple ones, and as I adjusted them, a cloud of that scent enveloped me. I stood frozen, my fingers on the elastic waistband, inhaling with a mixture of confusion and a primitive chill that ran down my spine. It wasn't my scent. My scent was neutral soap and water. This was someone else's. "You're imagining things, Clara," I whispered to myself in the bathroom mirror. "Stress. It's the overtime." I worked as an editor for a small publishing house, and the last few weeks had been hellish, filled with mediocre manuscripts and impossible deadlines. The night shifts from 4 to 12 were wearing down my nerves and my perception. That had to be it. My exhausted mind was playing tricks on me, but the scent lingered. Not on all my clothes, not always. Sometimes on a t-shirt I kept in the second drawer. Other times, on the pillowcase, right in the center, where I rested my head. It was elusive, an olfactory ghost that vanished when I tried to smell it too hard, only to reappear when I relaxed, seeping into my senses like poison gas. I started to become paranoid. I would check the lock on my apartment door once, twice, 3 times before leaving. I considered installing a camera, but the idea of seeing myself recorded in my own home seemed even more pathetic than the supposed hallucination. What would I see? Olfactory poltergeists? Perverted goblins? The last straw was the book. My copy of Wuthering Heights. My mother's old and beloved edition was on the nightstand, but not in the position I had left it. I always placed it with the spine parallel to the edge of the table. That afternoon, before I left for work, it was slightly turned, as if someone had leafed through it and left it there in a hurry. My heart raced in my chest. It wasn't my imagination. Someone had been here. On the night of the discovery, the air in the apartment was heavy, laden with the storm that threatened to break the suffocating heat of the city. I had come home exhausted, my head full of poorly constructed sentences, and my back aching from the office chair. All I wanted was a hot bath and to collapse into bed. As I opened the underwear drawer to get what I needed, my hand closed around something that wasn't fabric, a piece of paper folded into quarters, rough and cold. A silent alarm buzzed in my ears. I unfolded it with fingers that were beginning to tremble. The handwriting was rough, uneven, done in blue pen. It wasn't mine, and the words burned themselves into my retina before my brain could even process them. "Thank you for letting me smell you. You sleep on my pillow, and I breathe your peace. Your scent is my heaven. Soon I will be more than a whisper in your things." There was no signature, just the emptiness that followed the statement, an abyss opening up beneath my feet. The paper fell from my hands and floated to the floor like a poisoned feather. The blood froze in my veins. It wasn't a robbery. It was a violation, a slow, meticulous, and personal intrusion into the most intimate sanctuary of my life. The police were politely skeptical, a single woman living alone, under stress. "Are you sure this isn't a bad joke by a coworker, Miss Vega?" They searched the apartment half-heartedly, checked the lock, no signs of forced entry, and left with a vague promise to increase patrols in the area. I felt tiny, transparent, as if my terror wasn't substantial enough for them. That's when I looked at the lock, and I remembered the maintenance technician, Leo, a quiet man in his 40s with big hands and a smile that never reached his eyes. He had come by a month ago to fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen. I'd given him the key, the spare I kept for emergencies in the janitor's locker, because I had lost mine the week before. He had given it back to me, hadn't he? I was so busy that day, I couldn't remember. A knot of ice formed in my stomach. I decided to set a trap. I would pretend to go to work, but in reality, I would hide in the closet in the hall, the big one where I kept my winter coats and suitcases. It was crazy, I knew, but the paralysis of fear was worse. The next day, I performed my morning routine with the precision of an automaton. I got dressed, went out, locked the door with the latch. I had learned to leave it locked but not bolted, so it could be opened from the outside with the spare key, and hid in the fire escape, waiting for the building to sink into its daytime silence. Then, with my heart pounding in my chest, I slipped back inside and hid in the closet. The space was cramped and smelled of mothballs and old wood. Through the slats in the doors, I could see a narrow segment of my living room. The hours passed. Every creak of the building, every distant sound from the street made me jump. My muscles stiffened and the darkness became oppressive. I was about to give up, to convince myself that I was an idiot, when I heard the sound. Click. Soft, precise. The sound of a key turning in my lock. The door opened and closed with a thud. Heavy, calm footsteps echoed on the parquet floor. They weren't the quick footsteps of a thief. They were those of someone who was at home. And then I saw him walk past my hiding place, Leo. He was wearing jeans and a gray sweatshirt. In his hands, with obscene tenderness, he held one of my t-shirts, the white tank top. He brought it to his face and took a deep breath, his eyes closed, in an ecstasy that made me nauseous. "Hello, Clara," he murmured to the t-shirt in a hoarse, intimate voice. "You used coconut shampoo today. I love it." My blood ran cold. How could he know? Unless he had been in my shower. I had used that shampoo that very morning. I watched him, paralyzed, as he performed a macabre ritual. He walked around the apartment, touching my things, with a familiarity that made my blood run cold. He ran his fingers along the spines of my books, caressed the back of my favorite armchair, paused in front of a photo of me from college, and smiled, like a proud father. Then he headed for my bedroom. I couldn't contain myself. I came out of the closet, silent as a ghost, and approached the half-open door of my room. And I saw him, stretched out on my bed, on top of the comforter with his arms crossed behind his head. He hadn't taken off his shoes. He was staring at the ceiling with an expression of deep peace. His lips were moving, whispering something I couldn't hear, a private monologue in which I was the unwitting protagonist. It was the most sinister moment of my life. Seeing that man, a stranger, a ghost made flesh, lying in the place where I dreamed, desecrating my most private space with his simple, horrible presence. The perversion was not in a violent act, but in this stillness. In this grotesque appropriation of my intimacy, I tiptoed out of the apartment, shaking like a leaf, and called the police from the stairwell, my voice broken by a stifled sob. The arrest was quick. They found him still in my bed, now fast asleep. He didn't resist. He just looked at me as the officers took him away, with a sad smile, like an owner stripped of his property. The inspector in charge, a man with a tired face named Dominguez, asked me to go to the police station. They needed me to identify some items they had found in Leo's house. "Miss Vega," he said, in an unusually soft tone, "prepare yourself. What you're about to see is disturbing." Nothing could have prepared me. His house was a small townhouse in a nondescript neighborhood on the outskirts of town. It looked normal from the outside, but as soon as I walked through the door, the world blurred. The smell of mustiness and dust mingled with a faint scent of my perfume. And then I saw it. It was my bedroom. An exact replica. The same paint on the walls, the same model of nightstands, the same ceiling lamp. Even the crack in the plaster next to the window was reproduced in meticulous detail. On the bed, the same bedding, now stained in places I didn't want to identify. My photos, printed in giant size, covered the walls. Photographs of me leaving work, going to the supermarket, laughing with friends on a terrace, photographs I never knew were being taken. But the center of the room, the altar of his madness, was the doll. She was sitting in a chair in front of the cloned dressing table. She was wearing one of my robes. She had my complexion, my approximate height, and her hair, it wasn't synthetic. It was thick, reddish brown, exactly the same shade as mine. It was my hair. I remembered the strands I found in the brush and threw away. He didn't throw them away. He collected them. He wove them into this vinyl creature of horror. "We found diaries," said the inspector, gently placing a folder in my hands. "Many diaries, written as if he were you." I opened the folder at random. The handwriting was the same as the note, but the words, "Today Leo came to fix the faucet. His hands are so strong. He looked at me and I knew I could trust him. I gave him the key. I want him to be here when I'm not. I work nights. The bed is so empty. I wish he would come and warm my side, to inhale my absence and leave me his scent as a gift." It was absolute perversion. Not only had he violated my space, he had violated my voice. He had created a narrative in which I was a willing participant, an accomplice in love with my own stalker. He had given his obsession the validation of my supposed consent, written in his own handwriting in the spiral notebooks that filled an entire bookshelf. The ground shifted beneath my feet. I no longer felt violated. I felt dismantled, stripped of my own identity, of my own narrative. This man didn't just want to possess my body or my things. He wanted to possess my essence, my thoughts, my history. He had constructed an alternate world where I was his, and in doing so, he had desecrated the very reality in which I lived. I left that house feeling like a ghost in my own life. My apartment was no longer my home. It was the scene of a crime that was still ongoing, because every object, every corner, was now imbued with the echo of his gaze, his breath, his delirium. And worst of all, the most perverse idea of all, the one that lodged itself in my mind like a worm and began to gnaw at my sanity, was the one that whispered in my ear as I lay awake in an anonymous hotel bed, staring at a ceiling that was neither mine nor his. How many times had I really slept alone? My name is Patricia, and my life in Mexico City has always been a delicate balance, like walking across the rooftops of the Roma neighborhood on a windy night. One false step, and you fall into the void. I was 28 when it all began, living in an old apartment on Orizaba Street, a mansion from the 1920s, with high ceilings and walls that creaked like old bones. The rent was cheap, because the building was a labyrinth of shadows. Narrow hallways lit by yellow light bulbs that flickered like tired eyes, and a back alley where trash piled up in damp heaps, attracting rats and cats that meowed like souls in torment. I worked as a freelance graphic designer at a small agency in the Juarez neighborhood, spending hours in front of the screen creating logos for taquerias and hipster boutiques, while the traffic on Insurgentes Avenue roared outside like an eternal animal. It wasn't a glamorous life, but it was mine. Single, after a boyfriend left me for a TikTok influencer. I spent my nights with a glass of mezcal and Netflix series, the heavy summer air sticking my black hair to the back of my neck. I liked Roma for its poetic chaos, the cafes with tables on the sidewalk where people read Garcia Marquez under Victorian streetlights, the smell of pan de muerto in October mingling with the smoke from food trucks. But that city, with its millions of anonymous eyes, keeps secrets on every corner, and one of them began to notice me. It all started with a flower, a red rose, wrapped in crumpled, damp cellophane, as if it had been picked in the rain. I found it on my doormat one Tuesday in July, when the heat in Mexico City was like an oven that melted your bones. I came home from work exhausted, my flowery dress clinging to my sweaty skin, my sandals clicking against the splintered wooden steps. The third-floor hallway was empty, except for the echo of a neighbor playing guitar in some distant apartment. a melancholy ranchera song about lost love. There was the rose, alone on the floor, its red petals shining like fresh blood under the dim light of the bulb. I picked it up with a silly smile, smelling its sweet perfume that cut through the stale air, heavy with humidity and the rancid smell of peeling paint. A gallant neighbor, I muttered to myself, laughing as I placed it in a glass of water in the tiny kitchen, where the sink dripped like a faulty clock. It was cute, harmless. A romantic gesture in a city where men stare at you on the subway as if you were a taco al pastor, ravenously hungry but lacking in substance. I imagined the doorman, that chubby guy with a thick mustache and eyes that lingered on my legs as I climbed the stairs, or maybe the guy from the corner store with his sauce-stained t-shirt and crooked smile that promised cold beers on sleepless nights. I showered that night, the warm water falling on my body like a forgotten caress, and I went to bed with the window ajar, letting the night breeze bring the distant sound of a mariachi band at some clandestine wedding. I slept deeply, dreaming of roses growing in my veins, entangling my heart like perverse vines. The next day, another flower, a delicate white daisy, its petals looking like dried tears under the relentless sun. I found it on my way to work, tied with a red string to my door handle. There was no note, just the damp stem, as if it had been left there minutes before. I took it with me on the subway, squeezed between office workers with loose ties and women with shopping bags full of chilies and cilantro. The daisy wilted in my hand during the trip from Insurgentes to Hidalgo, its petals falling like sad confetti on the dirty floor of the car. At the agency, I put it in a plastic cup next to my laptop, and as I designed a poster for a jazz festival at the Lunario, I couldn't help but smile. It was a game, an anonymous flirtation that broke the monotony of my routine. But at night, when I returned, the game changed. The door was ajar, just a crack, but enough to make my heart leap into my throat. I pushed it cautiously. The creak of the hinges amplified in the silence of the hallway. Inside, the apartment was untouched. The kitchen, with dirty dishes in the dish rack. The living room, with my worn-out sofa and the TV turned off like a blind eye. But on the coffee table next to my remote control, there was a note. Plain paper, torn from a school notebook, with slanted handwriting, black ink dripping like blood. For Patricia, the most beautiful flower in this gray concrete. Someone is watching you. Sleep with my secret tonight. My pulse pounded in my temples. How did he know my name? The apartment doorbell had my last name, Vega, but no one in the building called me by my first name, except perhaps the doorman when he delivered packages. The note smelled of fresh ink and something else, a faint scent of tobacco and sweat, like that of a man who has walked too long in the sun. I crumpled it in my fist, the paper crackling like dry skin, and threw it in the trash can. But the chill remained, a cold finger brushing my spine as I double-locked the door and slid the bolt, as if that could block the invisible. That night, I didn't sleep well. I curled up under the thin sheets, the window now bolted shut, but the Mexico City air seeped through the cracks, heavy with humidity and the distant honk of a taxi. I dreamed of eyes in the dark, black pits staring at me from the alley, whispering my name like a wicked prayer. I woke up sweating, my heart racing, and checked the door. Locked. The window secured. It's just a silly neighbor, I told myself, drinking tap water that tasted of chlorine and metal. But the note burned in my mind, a worm curling in my thoughts. The flowers kept coming, like a ritual I didn't ask for. One every other day, always at the door or in the building's mailbox, where the mailman left them among pizza flyers and Telmex bills. Red carnations on a Wednesday, soaked as if they had been cut fresh from the Lagunilla market, with thorns that pricked my fingers when I touched them, leaving drops of blood on the cellophane. The note tied to the bouquet was longer this time. Your eyes on the subway this morning, like wells to drown in. The blue dress hugs you the way I want to. Sleep well, my secret flower. I watch over you from the shadows. Panic was a low buzzing in my ears, like the hum of the neon lights on Jalapa Avenue. The subway, I took Lane 2 every day, from Roma Station to Juarez, squeezed against unfamiliar bodies that smelled of cheap deodorant and machine-brewed coffee. That morning, I had worn a blue dress, a light cotton one I bought at the market in Medellin, because the heat was like an oven baking you alive. Someone had seen me, memorized me, desired me. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, the fluorescent light flickering like an interrogation. My shoulder-length, wavy black hair, tangled by the humidity. Almond-shaped eyes, a legacy from my Oaxacan mother, now dilated with fear. Lips that I painted red to pretend that the world wasn't swallowing me whole. Was it me who attracted this, with my dark skin and curves that the city devoured with hungry eyes? Or was it Roma itself, with its cobbled alleys and Diego Rivera murals that seemed to watch you from the walls? I started looking back as I walked. I got out of the Uber on Alvaro Obregón Avenue, the engine roaring like a wounded beast, and scanned the sidewalks. The steaming corn stand, where the lady in the stained apron offered me a tray with mayonnaise and chili. The couple kissing under a crooked streetlight, their shadows elongated like intertwined fingers. The skinny stray dog that followed me for a block, barking at nothing. Nothing. No one stood out. But the notes escalated in intimacy, like a lover testing boundaries. A white teddy bear with black button eyes and a heart embroidered on its chest with red thread, left on the doormat one Friday evening. I picked it up with trembling hands, the soft fabric against my skin, but it smelled of cheap cologne, the kind they sell at the San Juan market. Heavy, animalistic, primitive musk, like the sweat of a body that has walked miles to reach you. The note was inside, tucked into a pocket sewn into the bear's belly. This will hug you when I can't. But soon I will, Patricia. I feel you close, your warmth in the night air. The teddy bear stared at me from the trash that night, its button eyes accusatory as I crushed it under my foot, but the smell lingered in my nostrils, impregnated in the fabric of my clothes like an oily finger that brushes and withdraws. I didn't throw it away right away. I left it in the kitchen trash can as evidence of my own stupidity. Why didn't I call the police? Because in Mexico City, women like me, young, alone, with apartments in bohemian neighborhoods, are invisible until we bleed. And this was just romantic, right? A harmless madman with flowers and stuffed animals. I convinced myself of that as I poured mezcal into a fogged-up glass, the liquid burning my throat like a deserved punishment. The tension grew like fog rising from the drains in the streets after the rain. A letter in the building's mailbox, tucked between late electricity bills and flyers from El Tizoncito Taco Restaurant, promising the juiciest pasta in town. The envelope was manila, crumpled, unstamped, my name written in shaky handwriting with a black marker, Patricia Vega. I opened it on the subway, the car swaying like a sick belly, and the words hit me like a punch. I saw your silhouette last night, outlined against the living room window. Your room is a temple, Patricia, the way you take off your dress slowly, as if you knew I was watching you. Pray for me on that bed. Your sheets smell like jasmine, and I dream of burying myself in them. The world went blurry. The living room window overlooked the back alley, a narrow passageway flanked by high walls covered in faded graffiti, Viva Zapata, and broken hearts with other people's initials. Last night I had forgotten to close the curtain, too tired after a never-ending meeting at the agency, where my boss had yelled at me for using the wrong color in the logo. I took off my dress in the living room, as usual, because the full-length mirror was there, reflecting my tired body under the light of the floor lamp. Had he seen me? Or climbed the wall with a camera, or just his eyes? I threw up in the bathroom at Hidalgo Station, the stream of water from the sink drowning my sobs, my stomach churning with a disgust that was not just fear, but something deeper. As if his gaze had already stained me, made me his from a distance. I called my best friend Laura that same afternoon, sitting at my desk at the agency, the Mac screen flickering with an open file I couldn't see. "Potty, it sounds like a poem by Octavio Paz," she said, her cheerful voice filtering through the phone, accompanied by the clink of a coffee cup in her cubicle in Condesa. "A secret admirer. Invite him for coffee at Churreria El Moro with churros and hot chocolate. He could be the love of your life." I hung up, irritated, the phone hot against my ear like a burning ember. Love. In Mexico City, love was a taxi that dropped you off at the wrong door, a WhatsApp message that was deleted the next morning. I Googled anonymous harassment Mexico City, the cursor trembling on the keyboard. Forums on Reddit and Taringa full of similar stories. Women in Polanco receiving packages of used underwear with perfumed notes. Girls in Coyoacán finding messages scribbled on their car windshields in red lipstick. But nothing like this, so poetic and dirty at the same time, like a corrido of betrayal sung in a low voice. I installed a camera that week, one of those tiny wireless ones they sell at Palacio de Hierro for a fortune, with a phone app and night vision that promises to capture ghosts. I taped it above the door, the lens pointing at the doormat like a blind eye. "Now I'll see you, bastard," I muttered into the empty air, my voice a hiss that bounced off the bare walls. I felt empowered for a moment, as if technology could shield my vulnerability. But that night, checking the app from my bed, I saw only the dark hallway, the flickering light bulb, and the echo of my own footsteps as I entered. The first gift inside the house came on a Friday of torrential rain, when Mexico City transforms into a chaotic river of broken umbrellas, taxis stuck on insurgents, and tamale vendors shouting under makeshift awnings. I returned, soaked to the bone, my blue dress, the same one from the subway, stuck to me like a translucent second skin, outlining my breasts and hips for anyone who looked. I climbed the stairs, dripping, water forming puddles on the steps, and opened the door with the key trembling in my wet hand. The apartment was dark, except for the light from the refrigerator seeping in from the half-open kitchen door. I turned on the living room lamp, the click echoing like a gunshot, and then I saw it. A small box on the kitchen table, wrapped in navy blue wrapping paper with a red bow that glowed like arterial blood. My pulse quickened, a dull drum in my ears that drowned out the pounding of rain against the windows. The door had been double locked when I left that morning, the windows bolted shut. How? The box looked innocent, but my hands trembled as I untied the bow, the paper rustling like torn skin. Inside, a fine silver necklace, a small heart engraved with a cursive P, delicate as a whisper, and underneath, a note on cream-colored paper, the handwriting now more fluid, almost calligraphic. "So you can carry my heartbeat close to yours, Patricia. I stole it from your dreams last night, when the moon painted your skin silver. I watched you sleep, vulnerable, beautiful. Try it on. Feel my pulse on your chest. The world tilted. The Mexican tile floor undulating beneath my feet, stolen from my dreams." I looked around. The kitchen window overlooked the alley, with a low neighboring roof from which someone with a ladder or a drone could... No, it was impossible to get in without a key. But the necklace... I took it out, cold against my damp palm, and for a wicked moment, I held it close to my collarbone, imagining its weight like an invisible chain. The metal warmed to my skin, and I felt a chill that was not just cold, but his imagined breath on my neck, hot and possessive. I threw it into the sink with a metallic clang that echoed in the silence, the tap water washing the fear from my hands, but not from my mind. That night, in bed, with the sheets rumpled and the rain hammering on the roof like insistent fingers, I dreamed of him, a faceless silhouette. Tall and hunched, standing in the alley below my window, the mask of rain erasing his features but not his hunger. His fingers, long, veiny, traced the fog glass, writing my name in the mist. "Patricia," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Chilanga," with the drawl of someone who grew up in the neighborhoods of Iztapalapa or Neza. I woke up gasping, my heart racing, and ran to the window. It was closed, but the glass was fogged up, with a blurry trail where something or someone had touched it. The videos began a week later, like the next act in his shadow theater. I received an anonymous email at 3 in the afternoon while I was editing a banner for a club in the Zona Rosa, the cursor frozen on the screen. The account was generic. Patricia Mi Secreto eggmail.com. The subject line a simple, "A gift for you, my eternal flower." I hesitated, my finger hovering over open, my stomach a knot of anticipation and revulsion. But curiosity, that damn curiosity that killed the cat and now stalked me, won out. The attachment was a low-resolution MP4, grainy like a home movie from the 80s. I played it on my laptop, the volume low so as not to alert my coworkers in the open office, but my heart beating so loudly that it drowned out the traffic outside. The screen showed darkness at first, only the flicker of a dim light, perhaps a candle or the glow of a phone screen. Then a hand came into view, male, with prominent veins and nails bitten down to the cuticles, skin tanned by the Mexico City sun. It was holding a photo of me, a selfie I had uploaded to Instagram months earlier, on a beach in Puerto Escondido during a solo vacation in a red bikini, the sun gilding my skin, laughing with the sea in the background like an indifferent lover. The hand brought it closer to the camera, rubbing it against something. Exposed flesh, pale in the dim light. A low, muffled moan filled the tiny speakers, the rhythmic rubbing of skin against paper, the ragged gasping in sync with the movement. "Patricia, my Patricia, so soft, so mine," whispered the voice, distorted by a handkerchief or cheap filter, but unmistakably Mexican, with that accent from the capital that rolls the R's like a dirty secret. The climax came in an animalistic growl, semen splattering the photo in white spurts that smudged my smile, dripping down my pixelated face like obscene tears. The video ended with the hand wiping itself on the photo, rubbing the residue into my digital hair. A final act of possession that left my mouth dry and my body cold. I slammed the laptop shut, the sound as sharp as a gunshot, and ran to the agency bathroom, vomiting the sandwich I had eaten at noon. The bathroom mirror reflected a pale face, reddened eyes, trembling lips. Who? I deleted the email with clumsy fingers, blocked the account, but the video remained etched on my retina, a sinister loop playing in my mind during the ride home on the metro bus, squeezed against strangers who now all seemed guilty. That night, I didn't eat dinner. I sat on the sofa with the lights on, the necklace still in the sink like a cursed talisman, and checked the door camera. Just the empty hallway, the light bulb flickering, a black cat passing by like an omen. But sleep did not come. I stayed awake until dawn. Mexico City waking up with its chorus of car horns and newspaper vendors shouting headlines about floods in Iztapalapa, while I counted cracks in the ceiling, imagining his hand on my photo, his voice in my ear. The intimate photos were the next step in his descent into perversion. They arrived via WhatsApp from a disposable number that changed each time, as if he anticipated my blocking him. The first one came at 7 in the morning, while I was getting dressed for work, the phone vibrating on the nightstand like a trapped insect. I opened it in the bathroom, the steam from the shower fogging up the mirror, and the world stopped. Me, naked under the stream of water, the steam blurred but not enough to hide the outline of my breasts, the water running down my flat stomach, between my legs. The photo was from that same morning, taken from the bathroom window overlooking the alley, a low angle, as if he had climbed the neighboring wall with a phone in his hand, risking everything for that stolen glimpse. How, my God, I sobbed, the phone slipping onto the cold tile floor, water still dripping from my hair. The window had a latch, but the glass was old, cracked in one corner. Had he broken it? Or just waited for me to let my guard down? The next photo arrived that night while I was eating yogurt alone in the kitchen, the light from the hanging lamp casting long shadows on the walls. WhatsApp vibrated again, me in bed, asleep on my side, the sheet pulled down to my hips because of the heat, one breast exposed to the air, my dark nipple against the white fabric. The moonlight betraying me, filtering through the poorly closed curtain. Panic became a constant fog, a veil that clouded my days. I replaced the curtains with opaque ones sold at the La Lagunilla market, thick as shrouds, and reinforced the windows with iron bars from the hardware stores in La Merced, where the blacksmith looked at me with eyes that said, "Another victim of Mexico City." But he was always one step ahead, like a lover who knows your body before you do. A letter slipped under the door the next day, sliding like a snake. "Your breasts are ripe fruit, Patricia, swollen with desire you won't admit. I dream of biting them, of leaving my mark on your dark skin. Don't cover yourself. I see you anyway, through the cracks, from the shadows of the alley. Your body is my map, and I am the explorer." The language was sweet poison, poetic like the verses of Sor Juana that I studied at UNAM, but dirty like the graffiti on the walls of Tepito, where they promise love by the hour. She once gave me a vibrator, a pink, curved model, wrapped in black velvet like a Victorian secret left inside the house, in my underwear drawer of all places, the drawer I used to lock but now lay open, my panties scattered as if after a hurricane. The note was tied to the toy with a red ribbon. "Use it thinking of me, my flower. Next time I'll film you, your face in ecstasy, moaning my name in the dark. You'll be my star in the alley." The tension consumed me like the smog that suffocates the city in winter. I left for work with a knot in my stomach, a knot of nausea that made me reject the coffee from the machine at the agency, where my colleagues chatted about Netflix series without noticing my paleness. On the subway, I scanned faces, the man in a cheap suit reading El Universal with eyes that strayed to my cleavage, the woman in a rebozo who accidentally brushed against me with her purse, her glance fleeting but penetrating. All guilty, all possible. One night, on my way home in an Uber that smelled of incense and reheated tacos, I saw a silhouette in the alley as we passed. Tall, hunched over, smoking a cigarette in the light rain, the red ember flickering like a malevolent eye. "Stop here," I said to the driver, panic rising like bile, and I ran out, the heel of my boot slipping on the wet cobblestones. When I reached the door, panting, nothing. Just another flower, a wilted gardenia, its petals sticky with dried semen, the salty smell mixing with the floral perfume in perfect nausea. I called the police once, twice, 3 times. My voice breaking at the Cuauhtémoc station, where the officer with a thick mustache and wrinkled uniform looked at me with that mixture of pity and skepticism they reserve for crazy women downtown. "Miss Vega, without a direct threat, without proven trespassing, there's not much we can do," he said, scribbling on a form that looked like it was from the Porfirio Diaz era. "Keep the evidence. Photos, videos, letters. If he comes in, if he touches you, let us know. In the meantime, change the locks." Evidence. I created a folder on my Google Drive called Shadows, where I kept everything. The emails with videos, the intimate photos that I deleted but screenshotted first, the letters scanned with trembling hands. But each file made me feel more exposed, as if digitizing it multiplied it, sending it back to him like a perverse echo. The breaking point was the live video, which shattered the illusion of distance. I received a link to a private stream on an obscure app, anonymous like everything else about him, at 11 o'clock at night, while I was trying to sleep with melatonin pills that weren't working. I opened it by mistake, my fingers slipping on the sweat-dampened screen, and there it was. A dark room, my room, seen from a high corner of the ceiling. The bookshelf where I kept my novels, by Elena Poniatowska and Carlos Fuentes, now desecrated by a tiny black eye, a hidden camera wired to the light socket. Me in bed, that same morning, touching myself distractedly, in a moment of desperate relief, the sheets tangled around my thighs, the muffled moan escaping my lips like a betrayed secret. He narrated in a low voice, his hoarse voice filtering through the phone speakers, a whisper that tangled in my ear like smoke. "Look at you, Patricia. So wet for me, your fingers dancing like in a ritual. Moan my name, my love. Let me see you come." The chat below the stream flashed with messages from an invisible audience. Fake names like Admire69 and Flordel DF. "Closer. Show him your face. Enter her. Make her yours." It wasn't just one. It was a shared ritual, my intimacy auctioned off on the dark web of Chilango desire. I screamed, a primal sound that tore through the silence of the apartment, the phone falling to the floor with a crack. I ran to the bookshelf, knocking over books in an avalanche of yellowed pages, dust rising like a funeral veil. There it was, the camera, a black eye the size of a coin, hidden behind The Death of Artemio Cruz, the thin cable snaking up to the wall. I ripped it out in a rage, the wires tearing like veins, and sobbed on the floor, surrounded by novels that now seemed to mock my vulnerability. I called my grandmother Lupe that same night, my voice broken by sobs I couldn't contain, the phone pressed to my ear like a lifeline. Grandma lived in Xochimilco, in a white adobe house on the edge of the canals, where the chinampas float like green islands in a sea of stagnant water, and the trajineros row with red poles singing Cielito Lindo for clueless tourists. "Come, mija," said her voice, cracked by the years and the smoke from wood-burning stoves, an Oaxacan balm that calmed my storm. "The devil can't touch you here. The Virgin watches over us." I packed a suitcase that night. Under the rain that lashed Mexico City like divine tears, stuffing clothes, my laptop, and my test folder into a bag that smelled of mothballs. I drove my beat-up Suru down the federal highway, the engine coughing like a chronic smoker, passing through the outskirts of Cuernavaca, where motels flicker with pink neon lights, and then south toward the canals, the landscape changing from gray concrete to fields of corn and nopals swaying under the moon. The trip was a blur of headlights and paranoia. Every car in the rearview mirror was him, following me with low beams. Every shadow on the shoulder, his hunched silhouette waiting to pounce. I arrived in Xochimilco at dawn, the sky turning pink over the moored trajineras, the still water reflecting the lights of the chinampas like a broken mirror. Grandmother opened the door for me with her embroidered shawl and a hug that smelled of mole de olla and burnt sage, her wrinkled hand squeezing mine like an oath. "You're safe here, Potty. The ancestors don't let demons in." The house was a haven from my childhood, whitewashed adobe walls, blessed palm crosses on the doors, and a central courtyard where the parakeet cage chirped morning greetings. My room was the same as in summers past, a wooden bed with a mosquito net as white as a bridal veil, the Virgin of Guadalupe on an altar of unlit candles, and a window overlooking the canal, where frogs croaked like a pagan choir. I slept for 16 hours straight, exhaustion washing over me like a wave, dreaming not of shadows, but of the canal water carrying my fears away in a slow and merciful current. For weeks, the peace was real. We would ride through the chinampas in a rented trajinera, my grandmother rowing with arms strong for her age, the water splashing against the wooden hull as we ate hot, steaming tamales wrapped in corn husks. She told stories of my grandfather, a chinampero who drowned in a canal during a storm. Her voice intermingled with the singing of flower sellers passing by in boats loaded with cempasúchil and gladiolas. "Love is like these canals, mija," she would say, her oar cutting through the water like a knife. "Deep, dark, but always flowing. Don't let it stagnate." I nodded, the sun warming my skin, and for the first time in months I laughed. At the ducks swimming behind the trajinera, pecking at crumbs. At the children in the chinampas, splashing in the mud with laughter that rang like bells. The harassment seemed to vanish like copal smoke in a ceremony. I changed my phone number at a small shop in town, deleted all my social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, even the WhatsApp I used for casual hookups, and tied the folder of evidence to a USB key that I kept on the altar of the Virgin as an offering to oblivion. He got tired, I told myself one afternoon, sitting in the courtyard with a chocolate atole that my grandmother prepared on a clay griddle, the steam rising in sweet spirals. Mexico City devoured him, as it devours everything. Xochimilco healed me. The markets with their pyramids of red and green chilies, the smell of wet earth after the rain, the nights when the canal whispered harmless secrets instead of threats. But he never tires. He never tires. One October morning, when the air was cooling with the prelude to the Day of the Dead and the chinampas were decorated with offerings of pan de muerto and sugar skulls, Grandma brought the mail from the village in a wicker basket. Among the electricity bills and a flyer for the Chinampa Fair, there was a thick, unstamped manila envelope with my name written in shaky black marker, Patricia, my eternal offering. I opened it in the kitchen, the sun filtering through the window like an accusing finger, and the contents made my blood run cold. A photo. Me in the backyard, watering the bougainvilleas the night before, the kitchen light outlining my silhouette against the open door, my light dress fluttering in the breeze from the canal. The framing was perfect, taken from the water, perhaps from a trajinera moored in the shade. On the back, a note scribbled in the same handwriting. I followed you here, my flower. Xochimilco is romantic, with its canals carrying secrets to the heart of the city. I will swim in your waters soon, Patricia. Leave the door open for me. The cry that came out of my throat was a muffled squawk, attracting Grandma from the patio with her broom in hand. Mija, she exclaimed, her cataract-clouded eyes fixed on the photo. She took it without a word, crumpled it in her gnarled fist, and threw it into the wood stove, where the flames devoured it with an ominous crackle, black smoke rising like a damned soul. La Malinche does not enter here, she muttered in Mixtec, sprinkling salt in the corners of the kitchen and praying an Our Father under her breath. But I saw the fear in her eyes, the same fear reflected in mine. He had found me, crossed the city, navigated the canals like an axolotl in the darkness. Since then, terror has been a constant companion, a guest that Grandmother and I pretend to ignore. The parrots in their cage squawk at night for no reason, their feathers bristling as if they smell intruders in the air. The bougainvilleas in the courtyard have withered petals, fallen in patterns that look like scribbled initials, P, with a coiled snake. Last night, a soft knock on my bedroom window. A red rose pressed against the glass, its petals dripping, something viscous, white, and sticky under the moon of Xochimilco. The note was pinned to a thorn. Sleep with me in the canal, Patricia, or I'll come for your grandmother first. Take her to my Day of the Dead offering. You decide, my love. I live with fear like a second skin, in this house that smells of childhood and burnt sage, but now tinged with his perversion. He lurks in the canals, a ghostly rower in an unlit trajinera, his silhouette silhouetted against the black water. And I, Patricia, pray to the Virgin of Guadalupe that he won't come in, that the ancestors will drag him to the bottom. But at night, when the water whispers against the adobe walls and the axolotls croak their ancient song, I hear his voice in the wind. I see you, my flower. I will always see you, and soon you will feel me.